Purchased bride. When a marriage contract becomes real love. Prologue. The contract signing. The pen hovered above the signature line. Olivia Morrison's hand trembled, not from fear, though fear was there, coiled tight in her chest like a spring wound too many times. No, this was rage. Pure, white-hot fury that made her fingers shake and her jaw ache from clenching. Across the mahogany table he sat. Alexander Sterling. The man she would marry in 72 hours. He didn't look at her. His eyes remained fixed on his own contract, his expensive fountain pen moving with practiced elegance across the page. As if this were just another business deal. As if he weren't signing away his life the same way she was signing away hers. The grandfather clock in the corner ticked. Each second stretched like pulled taffy. Her father's hand touched her shoulder. A warning, a reminder. Sign it, Olivia. Save the company. Save our legacy. But it was her mother's face she saw when she closed her eyes. The hospital bed. The experimental treatment they couldn't afford. The insurance that wouldn't cover it. The prognosis that gave them 6 months, maybe less. And then Alexander Sterling had appeared, like some dark angel of salvation. Or damnation. "I'll pay for everything," he'd said. His voice smooth as aged whiskey. "Every treatment, every specialist, every hope. In exchange, your daughter becomes my wife. Not for love. Not even for lust. For an heir. For legitimacy. For the respectability his new money couldn't buy but her old family name could provide." Olivia pressed the pen to paper. The scratch of ink on parchment sounded like a death sentence being pronounced. She signed her name. Across the table, Alexander Sterling finally looked up. Their eyes met for the first time since entering the room. His were storm gray, unreadable, framed by dark lashes that would have been beautiful on anyone else. On him they made him look dangerous. "There," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I hope you're satisfied." Satisfied. The corner of his mouth lifted. Not quite a smile, more like the ghost of something that might have been humor once, in another life. "I don't think either of us signed that contract expecting satisfaction, Miss Morrison." "It's Mrs. Sterling now," she corrected, venom in every syllable. "Or will be in 3 days. 71 hours and 42 minutes, he said, glancing at his watch. A Patek Philippe that probably cost more than her first car. But who's counting? The lawyers began gathering papers, their murmured conversations filling the silence. Her father was already on his phone, probably calling the hospital, arranging the transfer of funds for her mother's treatment. The treatment that would save her life. The treatment Olivia had just sold her freedom to secure. Alexander stood, buttoning his suit jacket with one hand. He moved like someone accustomed to being watched, every gesture deliberate and controlled. When he walked around the table toward her, Olivia forced herself not to step back. He stopped close, too close. She could smell his cologne, something expensive and understated that probably had a French name she couldn't pronounce. "I know you hate me," he said quietly. His voice pitched for her ears alone. The lawyers and her father were too busy with paperwork to notice how near he stood, how his presence seemed to fill all the air in the room. "I know you think I'm a monster for this." "I don't think," Olivia replied, meeting his gaze without flinching. "I know." Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe, or respect. "Good. It's easier this way." "What is?" "Everything." He reached out and she tensed, but he only straightened the collar of her blouse, his fingers brushing her neck for a fraction of a second. The touch burned. When you hate someone, you don't expect kindness. You don't expect warmth. You don't expect. He trailed off, his hand falling away. "Don't expect what?" Olivia demanded. Alexander smiled then, a real smile this time, but it was the saddest thing she'd ever seen. To be disappointed. He turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing on the marble floor. The doorway he paused. "The wedding planner will contact you tomorrow. She has my instructions. You'll have everything you need. Except my freedom." Olivia called after him. He looked back over his shoulder. Yes, he agreed softly. Except that. And then he was gone, leaving only the faint scent of his cologne and the weight of the contract in her hands. Olivia looked down at the papers. Her signature stared back at her, stark and black and irrevocable. Olivia Josephine Morrison, soon to be Olivia Josephine Sterling. In the distance she heard a car engine start. His car probably. Driving away from this moment, this decision, this prison they'd both just locked themselves into. The clock ticked. 71 hours and 40 minutes until the wedding. Olivia folded the contract carefully, creasing it with precision, and tucked it into her purse. Then she walked to the window and looked out at the manicured grounds of the Sterling estate, the place that would become her home, her cage, her kingdom. Somewhere in this massive house, Alexander Sterling was probably pouring himself a drink, celebrating or mourning, she didn't know which. What she did know was this. She had 71 hours to prepare for a marriage without love, to a man without mercy, for a future without freedom. And yet, when she closed her eyes, all she could see was his face in that moment when he'd straightened her collar. The way his fingers had trembled just once before they touched her skin. The way his eyes had held something that looked almost like longing. Well, she shook her head, banishing the thought. Alexander Sterling was a businessman who'd bought himself a wife like he'd buy a painting or a racehorse. There was nothing more to it than that. Nothing at all. But as she turned from the window, Olivia Morrison couldn't quite convince herself that was true. The clock struck midnight. 71 hours to go. Chapter 1. The Bride Who Didn't Smile. The dress weighed 30 pounds. Olivia knew this because the designer had mentioned it proudly, 3 times, as if the weight of silk and crystal beading somehow correlated with the depth of love or the success of a marriage. As if heaviness equaled happiness. Standing in front of the full-length mirror in the bridal suite of St. Catherine's Cathedral, Olivia thought the dress was the perfect metaphor for everything that was about to happen. Beautiful. Expensive. Suffocating. You look like a princess, her younger sister Sophia breathed, adjusting the train for the 100th time. I look like a prisoner, Olivia replied. Live. A very expensive prisoner, she amended. In a very expensive cage. Her mother sat in the corner, thin and pale but alive. Gloriously, miraculously alive. The experimental treatment Alexander had paid for was working. The color had returned to her cheeks. The light had returned to her eyes. She would live to see Olivia's children, assuming Olivia survived long enough to have them. That was the bargain. That was the price. And looking at her mother now, seeing her smile, seeing her live, Olivia knew she'd sign that contract 1,000 times over if she had to. Even if it meant walking down the aisle to a man who'd bought her like property. 5 minutes, Miss Morrison, someone called from outside the door. 5 minutes until she became Mrs. Alexander Sterling. 5 minutes until her life as she knew it ended. Olivia took a deep breath, the corset squeezing her ribs, making it hard to breathe. Or maybe that was just panic. Hard to tell. Her phone buzzed. She picked it up with trembling fingers. A text from an unknown number. You can still run. For a wild moment she almost laughed. Run where? In a 30-pound dress and 6-inch heels. Run to what? Her mother would die without the treatment. Her father's company would collapse. Her family's legacy would crumble to dust. She typed back. Who is this? The response came immediately. Someone who knows what you're giving up. Olivia stared at the screen, her heart pounding. Before she could respond, the door opened. Her father stood there in his tuxedo, looking older than she remembered, the weight of everything they'd lost and everything they stood to lose etched into every line of his face. It's time, sweetheart. She deleted the message and turned off her phone. I'm ready, she lied. The cathedral was packed. 400 guests she didn't know, didn't care about, would never see again after today. Society elite, business partners, political connections. All of Alexander Sterling's people. All here to witness him acquire his greatest asset yet. Respectability wrapped in silk and lace. The organ began to play. Pachelbel's canon. Traditional. Expected. If. Nothing about this was safe. Olivia took her father's arm. His hand covered hers, squeezing gently. "You don't have to do this," he whispered. "We'll find another way." "There is no other way," she whispered back. "And we both know it." The doors opened. 400 faces turned to look at her. At the end of the impossibly long aisle, Alexander Sterling waited. He wore a black tuxedo that fit him like it was painted on, custom-made by some Italian designer whose name she couldn't remember. His dark hair was swept back, his strong jaw clean-shaven, his storm-gray eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her knees weak. He looked like every woman's dream. He looked like her nightmare. They began the walk. Each step felt like descending into deep water, the pressure building, the light fading, the surface growing more and more distant. Her father's arm was the only thing keeping her grounded, keeping her from turning and running and never stopping. Halfway down the aisle, Alexander's expression changed. Something flickered across his face, so quick she almost missed it. Regret. Doubt. Impossible. Men like Alexander Sterling didn't regret their business decisions. And that's all she was. A business decision. They reached the altar. Her father lifted her veil, kissed her cheek and whispered, "I'm so sorry." Then he placed her hand in Alexander's. His fingers were warm, strong. They closed around hers with a gentleness that surprised her, as if he were holding something precious, something fragile. She looked up at him and for a moment, just one impossible, infinite moment, the cathedral fell away. The 400 guests disappeared. The organ faded. It was just the two of them, standing at the threshold of something neither of them wanted and both of them needed. "Hello, Olivia," he said quietly. "Alexander," she replied, her voice steadier than her heartbeat. "You can still change your mind." She blinked. "What?" "Right now. You can walk away. I'll still pay for your mother's treatment. I'll still save your father's company. But you don't have to do this." Olivia stared at him. This was the man who'd cornered her family into this arrangement, who'd dangled salvation in front of them like a carrot before a starving horse, who'd made it clear this marriage was a transaction, nothing more. And now he was giving her an out. "Why?" she demanded. "Why would you do that?" Alexander's jaw tightened. "Because you're walking down this aisle like you're walking to your execution. And I may be many things, Olivia Morrison, but I'm not a monster." "You bought a wife," she pointed out. "I made a business arrangement," he corrected. "There's a difference." "Is there?" "Yes." His eyes held hers. "One requires consent. And looking at your face right now, I'm not sure I have it." The priest cleared his throat. 400 people waited. The organ played on, the same notes repeating endlessly, building toward something. Olivia thought about her mother, about her father, about the family name and the legacy and all the things that mattered and didn't matter and mattered anyway. Then she thought about the text message. "You can still run." But running solved nothing. Running saved no one. "I consent," she said clearly, loudly enough for the front row to hear. "Let's do this." Something changed in Alexander's expression. The gentleness vanished, replaced by that businessman's mask she was beginning to recognize. "Very well." He turned to the priest. "We're ready." The ceremony began. Olivia heard none of it. The words washed over her like water, meaningless sounds that might as well have been in Latin for all the sense they made. She spoke when prompted, repeated vows she didn't believe, promised forever to a man she'd known for 3 days. When it came time for the rings, Alexander slid a platinum band onto her finger. It was beautiful, elegant and simple, with a single diamond that caught the light. Probably cost more than most people made in a year. Felt like a shackle. She slid a matching band onto his finger, her hands shaking. He noticed. Course he noticed. Alexander Sterling noticed everything. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the priest intoned. "You may kiss the bride." Alexander cupped her face in his hands. His palms were warm against her cheeks, his touch surprisingly gentle. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted to. She didn't move. His lips brushed hers, soft, brief, chaste. Kiss for the cameras, for the guests, for the world. Nothing more. But when he pulled back, his eyes told a different story. Dark with something she couldn't name, something that made her breath catch and her heart stutter. "Hello, wife," he murmured, too quiet for anyone else to hear. "Hello, husband," she replied. The organ swelled. The guests applauded. Alexander took her hand and led her back down the aisle, away from the altar, away from the moment when she'd become his property in the eyes of the law and the church and society. Except his hand in hers didn't feel like ownership. Felt like partnership, support. Like he was saying without words, "We're in this together now. For better or worse." The reception was a blur. Champagne she didn't drink. Food she didn't taste. Speeches she didn't hear. Her face ached from smiling for photos, from accepting congratulations from strangers, from pretending this was the happiest day of her life. Alexander played his part perfectly. The devoted groom. The proud husband. He kept his hand on the small of her back, guided her through the crowd, made all the right comments to all the right people. It was a masterclass in performance. During their first dance, he pulled her close. Closer than necessary. Close enough that she could feel the steady beat of his heart against her chest. "You're doing well," he said. "I'm a good actress. Are you acting?" His hand tightened on her waist. "Or are you surviving? Is there a difference?" "Yes." He spun her gently, expertly, moving them across the dance floor like they'd been doing this for years instead of seconds. Acting requires pretense. Survival is just existing. One breath after another. "You sound like you know something about that." "I do." His eyes met hers. "We have that in common at least." "What else do we have in common?" "We're both good at making deals we don't want," he replied. "We're both willing to sacrifice ourselves for the people we love. And we're both trapped in this marriage whether we like it or not." "You could have said no," Olivia pointed out. "Nobody forced you." "Didn't they?" Alexander smiled, but it was bitter. "My board of directors gave me an ultimatum. Marry into society or lose the company my father spent his life building. So here I am. Married. Respectable. Legitimate. And miserable." "Are you?" Olivia considered lying. But something about the way he looked at her really looked like he was seeing past the dress and the makeup and the bride persona to the woman underneath, made dishonesty feel pointless. "Yes," she admitted. "I'm miserable. I'm angry. I'm scared. And I'm walking through this day like it's happening to someone else because if I let myself feel it, really feel it, I think I'll break." Alexander's expression softened. "Then don't feel it yet. Not today. Today we survive. Tomorrow we figure out how to live with what we've done." The song ended. The guests applauded. Alexander released her, and she immediately felt the loss of his warmth, his steadiness. "Time to cut the cake," he said. "Are you ready for more performing?" "I'm ready for this day to end." "Soon," he promised. "Just a few more hours. A few more hours of smiling. Of pretending. Of acting like this marriage was something other than a carefully negotiated business transaction." But as Alexander led her toward the towering wedding cake, 7 tiers of white fondant and sugar flowers, Olivia caught a glimpse of something in his expression. Crack in the mask. A moment of vulnerability that disappeared as quickly as it appeared. Maybe she thought she wasn't the only one pretending. Maybe they were both trapped in this beautiful, expensive lie. The photographer positioned them. Alexander's hand covered hers on the knife. They cut the first slice together, and the crowd cheered. He lifted a small piece of cake to her lips. "Open," he commanded softly. She did. The cake was sweet, too sweet, cloying. But she swallowed it and smiled for the cameras. Then it was her turn. She fed him a piece, watching his lips close around the fork, watching his throat work as he swallowed. Good, she asked. Adequate, he replied. Then, leaning in close enough that his breath ghosted across her ear. Unlike you, Olivia Sterling. You're anything but adequate. Before she could ask what he meant, he straightened, smiled for the cameras, and led her away to cut more cake for eager guests. The rest of the reception passed in a haze of congratulations, dancing and false smiles. Finally, as the sun began to set and the guests began to thin, Alexander appeared at her side. It's time, he said. Time for what? To leave. To go home. The Sterling estate. The place she'd signed away her freedom. I need to say goodbye to my family, she said. Of course. She found her mother first. They embraced and her mother whispered, Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you for saving me. Always, Mom. Always. Her father hugged her next, his eyes suspiciously bright. If he hurts you. He won't, Olivia interrupted. Not because she believed it, but because her father needed to hear it. Sophia was last. Her sister clung to her, crying openly. I'll visit all the time. Every week. I promise. I know you will. Then there was nothing left but to go. Alexander helped her into the waiting limousine. The door closed behind them, sealing them in sudden, shocking silence. The cathedral, the reception, the guests, all disappeared behind tinted windows. They were alone. Truly alone for the first time since they'd met. Olivia slumped against the leather seat, suddenly exhausted beyond belief. The dress felt heavier than ever. The makeup itched. The smile she'd been wearing all day finally slipped. You can take off the veil if you want, Alexander said quietly. No one's watching now. She did, pulling out the pins that held it in place, feeling her hair tumble loose around her shoulders. The relief was immediate and overwhelming. Better, he asked. Much. They drove in silence for a while. Olivia watched the city lights blur past the window, each mile taking her further from her old life and closer to her new one. What happens now? She finally asked. Alexander loosened his tie. Now we go home. We settle in. We figure out how to live with each other. And then we fulfill the terms of our agreement. We attend social functions together. We present a united front. And eventually, when the time is right, He trailed off. Have a child, Olivia finished. The final term of their contract. The real reason Alexander had married her. Not for her family name or her social connections, but for an heir. Someone to inherit his empire. Yes, Alexander confirmed. But not yet. Not until we're both ready. When will that be? I don't know. He looked at her then, really looked. His gray eyes unreadable in the dim light of the limo. Do you want to know the truth, Olivia? I'm not sure. The truth is, I don't know what I'm doing. I've negotiated billion-dollar deals. I've built an empire from nothing. I've done things that would make lesser men weep. But this, being married, being a husband, I have no idea how to do this. His honesty shocked her. At least you're admitting it. I see no point in lying. He smiled slightly. We're stuck with each other. We might as well be honest. Okay then. Honestly. I'm terrified. Of me. Of this. Of us. Of waking up tomorrow in a stranger's house married to a stranger. Then we won't be strangers, Alexander said simply. Starting now. Ask me anything. I'll answer honestly. Olivia considered. There were so many questions. Too many. But one rose to the surface, urgent and necessary. Why did you really make this deal? She asked. You're Alexander Sterling. You're brilliant, ruthless, successful. You could have had any woman you wanted. So why buy one? His expression darkened. Because the women who wanted me didn't want me. They wanted my money, my power, my name. They wanted what I could give them. Not who I am. And you think I'm different? No. The word was blunt, honest. I think you're exactly the same. You married me for what I could give you. Your mother's life, your father's company. But at least you're honest about it. At least you're not pretending to feel something you don't. Would you want me to pretend? God, no. He laughed, but it was a hollow sound. I've had enough of that to last a lifetime. No, Olivia. I want honesty. I want reality. Even if that reality is that we're both trapped in a marriage neither of us wanted. The limo pulled through the gates of the Sterling estate. The massive house rose before them, lit from within, every window glowing like a promise or a threat. "We're home," Alexander said. Such a simple word for such a complicated place. The driver opened the door. Alexander exited first, then offered his hand to help her out. She took it, gathering her heavy skirts, stepping out into the cool evening air. The staff lined up to greet them. Mrs. Chen, the housekeeper. Roberts, the butler. A dozen others whose names she'd have to learn. "Welcome home, Mrs. Sterling," they chorused. Mrs. Sterling. Her new name. Her new identity. Alexander kept his hand at the small of her back as they walked inside. The gesture was becoming familiar, almost comforting. In the grand foyer, he finally released her. "Your things have been moved to the master suite. Mrs. Chen will show you up. If you need anything." "Wait." Olivia grabbed his arm. "That's it. You're not." "Not what?" She felt herself flush. "I thought on our wedding night we'd." Understanding dawned in his eyes. "Consummate the marriage." "Yes." Alexander stepped closer. Close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his gaze. Close enough that she could see the individual lashes framing his storm-gray eyes. "Olivia," he said softly, "I may have bought your hand in marriage. I may have purchased your time, your name, your presence at my side. But I will never, ever take something you haven't offered freely. Do you understand?" She nodded, not trusting her voice. "Good." He stepped back, creating distance. "When we share a bed, if we share a bed, it will be because you want to. Not because a contract says you have to. Clear?" "Clear," she managed. "Then good night, Mrs. Sterling. Sleep well." He turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing in the empty foyer, leaving her standing there in her 30-pound dress feeling more confused than ever. Alexander Sterling had just had every opportunity to claim his husbandly rights, to consummate their marriage, to begin fulfilling the terms of their agreement. And he'd walked away, given her a choice, treated her like a person instead of property. Olivia touched her lips, remembering the brief kiss at the altar. Respectful. Nothing like the kisses she'd imagined from a man with his reputation. "Mrs. Sterling." Mrs. Chen appeared at her elbow. "Shall I show you to your room?" "Yes," Olivia replied. "Yes, please." She followed the housekeeper up the sweeping staircase, down a long hallway to a set of double doors. Mrs. Chen pushed them open, revealing the master suite. It was beautiful, enormous, decorated in shades of cream and gold, with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the estate grounds. A California king bed dominated the center of the room, draped in silk and surrounded by too many pillows. "Mr. Sterling's room is through there," Mrs. Chen said, pointing to a connecting door. "But he asked me to tell you it will remain locked unless you choose to open it." More choices, more respect. What game was Alexander Sterling playing? "Thank you, Mrs. Chen. That will be all." The housekeeper left. Olivia was finally, blessedly alone. She peeled off the heavy dress, leaving it in a puddle on the floor. She washed off the makeup, unpinned her hair, changed into the silk nightgown someone had laid out on the bed. Then she stood at the window, looking out at the moonlit grounds, at the life that was now hers whether she wanted it or not. Somewhere in this vast house, Alexander Sterling was probably doing the same thing, standing at a window, looking out at the darkness, wondering what the hell they'd both just done. Olivia touched the platinum band on her finger. Mrs. Sterling. Mrs. Alexander Sterling. 24 hours ago, she'd been Olivia Morrison, free woman. Now she was someone's wife. Someone's possession. Someone's business arrangement. Except Alexander had given her choices. He'd given her respect. He'd given her something she hadn't expected, space. Maybe, she thought, this wouldn't be the prison she'd imagined. Or maybe that was just hope talking. Only time would tell. Olivia climbed into the enormous bed, pulled the silk sheets up to her chin and closed her eyes. Tomorrow, she'd figure out how to be Mrs. Sterling. Tonight she'd just survive. One breath at a time. Chapter 2. Learning to coexist. Olivia woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and a moment of complete disorientation. Where was she? This wasn't her room, her bed, her life. Then she saw the platinum ring on her finger, and everything came flooding back. The wedding. The contract. Alexander Sterling. She was married. A soft knock at the door made her sit up, clutching the sheets to her chest. Yes. Good morning, Mrs. Sterling. Mrs. Chen's voice. I've brought breakfast. May I come in? One moment. Olivia grabbed the robe from the foot of the bed. Silk, expensive, probably cost more than her entire college wardrobe, and wrapped it around herself. Come in. Mrs. Chen entered with a silver tray laden with food. Coffee, fresh fruit, pastries, eggs Benedict, toast. Enough food for 3 people. Is Mr. Sterling joining me? Olivia asked. Mr. Sterling left for the office at 6 this morning, ma'am. He asked me to tell you he'll return this evening for dinner. Of course he had. Because why would her new husband want to have breakfast with her on their first morning as man and wife? That would be too much like an actual marriage. Thank you, Mrs. Chen. The housekeeper set the tray on the small table by the window, then hesitated. Ma'am, Mr. Sterling also left this for you. She held out an envelope. Heavy cream cardstock. Olivia's name written across the front in bold, masculine handwriting. Olivia took it, waiting until Mrs. Chen left before opening it. Inside was a black credit card. No limit, she assumed, and a brief note. Olivia, the house is yours. Do whatever you'd like with it. The card has no restrictions. Use it freely. Roberts and Mrs. Chen will assist with anything you need. We should discuss the terms of our cohabitation. Dinner tonight at 8. Cohabitation. Such a clinical word for what they were doing. Not living together. Not building a life. Cohabiting. Like roommates. Like strangers forced to share space. Which, she supposed, was exactly what they were. Olivia ate breakfast mechanically, tasting nothing. The coffee was excellent. The food was probably excellent too. But it all felt like ash in her mouth. After breakfast, she explored her new prison. The master suite was actually a collection of rooms. The bedroom, a sitting area, a massive walk-in closet that had been filled with clothes in her size, when had that happened, and a bathroom that was larger than her old apartment. The connecting door to Alexander's room remained closed. Locked as promised. She tried the handle anyway. She didn't want to see his space, his things, the life he lived when he wasn't playing the role of dutiful husband. The rest of the house was a maze of opulent rooms. A library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. Home gym. A screening room. A wine cellar. An indoor pool. Gardens that seemed to go on forever. It was beautiful. All of it. Museum-quality art on the walls. Antique furniture that probably belonged in actual museums. Every detail perfect, every surface gleaming. And it felt utterly, completely empty. Olivia wandered from room to room like a ghost, her footsteps echoing on marble floors, her reflection appearing in too many mirrors. By noon she'd had enough. She called her mother. Darling, how was your first night? Lonely. Confusing. Nothing like I expected. Fine, Mom. How are you feeling? Wonderful. The doctors say the treatment is working even better than expected. I might be able to come home sooner than we thought. That's amazing. They talked for an hour. Her mother's voice was stronger, more vibrant than it had been in months. This was why she'd done it, Olivia reminded herself. This was why she'd signed the contract, worn the dress, said the vows. Her mother would live. That was all that mattered. Afterwards she tried to read. Tried to watch television. Tried to do anything to make the hours pass faster. At 7:30, she went upstairs to change for dinner. Someone, Mrs. Chen probably, had laid out an outfit on her bed. A simple but elegant dress in deep emerald green, paired with heels and subtle jewelry. Apparently, even dressing herself was now a collaborative effort. Olivia put on the dress. Fit perfectly, of course. Everything in this house was perfect. At precisely 8 o'clock, she descended the stairs to find Alexander waiting in the dining room. He'd changed out of his business suit into dark slacks and a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows. His hair was slightly disheveled, as if he'd been running his hands through it. He looked tired. "Olivia!" He stood as she entered. "You look beautiful. Your housekeeper picked it out. Then she has excellent taste." He pulled out her chair. "Please sit." Dinner was served by silent staff who appeared and disappeared like ghosts. Course after course of food, neither of them seemed particularly interested in eating. They made small talk. The weather. The house. Nothing substantial. Nothing real. Finally, over dessert, a crème brûlée that looked too pretty to eat, Alexander set down his spoon and met her eyes. "We need to establish some rules," he said. "Rules. Guidelines. Boundaries. Whatever you want to call them. Things that will make this situation more bearable for both of us." Olivia set down her own spoon. "Okay. What kind of rules?" Alexander pulled out a small notebook, the kind businessmen carried, filled with notes and reminders and the details that made empires run. He flipped it open. First, public versus private behavior. In public, we present a united front. We attend events together. We're affectionate within reason. We play the role of happily married couple. And in private? In private, we're honest. No pretending. No performing. Just two people trying to share a space without driving each other insane. Fair enough. Second, personal space. You have your rooms. I have mine. Neither of us enters the other's space without invitation. The rest of the house is shared territory. Agreed. Third, schedules. I work long hours. I travel frequently. I'll inform you of my plans, but I won't ask permission. Similarly, you're free to come and go as you please. Pursue your own interests. See your friends and family. I won't restrict your movement. Olivia blinked. You won't? No. Told you, Olivia. I may have bought your hand in marriage, but I won't control your life. You're not my prisoner. What am I then? Alexander considered. My partner. In a very specific, very limited partnership. But a partner nonetheless. Okay. What else? He consulted his notebook. Money. You have unlimited access to funds. Buy what you want. Do what you want. I don't care. But keep receipts for the accountant. Anything else? Yes. He closed the notebook, his expression growing serious. The most important rule, honesty. If something bothers you, tell me. If you need something, ask. If this arrangement becomes unbearable, say so. We'll find a solution. Even if the solution is ending this marriage. Even then. His gray eyes held hers. I won't keep you here if you're miserable, Olivia. That was never the point. What is the point then? Survival. For both of us. You need me to save your family. I need you to save my company. We're using each other. Let's at least be honest about that. It should have hurt, hearing it stated so baldly. But instead, Olivia felt a strange sense of relief. No pretense. No lies. Just cold, hard reality. Okay, she said. Honesty. I can do that. Good. Alexander poured them both more wine. Then honestly, how are you doing? How was your first day as Mrs. Sterling? Olivia sipped her wine, considering. Honestly. It was weird. The house is beautiful but empty. I have everything I could possibly need and nothing I actually want. And I spent the entire day wondering what the hell I'm supposed to do with myself. What did you do before? For work. I was a teacher. 2nd grade. Something flickered in Alexander's expression. Surprise, maybe. You gave that up. I gave up everything. The words came out more bitter than she intended. My job, my apartment, my independence, my life. You could teach again. If you wanted. Olivia laughed, but there was no humor in it. Where? People would think it was a hobby. Rich wife playing at having a career. Besides, I signed a contract that requires me to be available for social functions, charity events, all the things Mrs. Alexander Sterling is supposed to do. When would I have time to teach? You'd make time. If it mattered to you. Does anything I want actually matter? The question hung between them, sharp and jagged. Alexander set down his wine glass with deliberate care. It matters to me. Why? You got what you wanted. Wife. Respectability. Mission accomplished. I got a woman who looks at me like I'm the monster under her bed, Alexander replied quietly. I got a wife who flinches when I come too close, who walks through this house like she's haunting it instead of living in it. That's not what I wanted. What did you want? I don't know. He ran a hand through his hair, making it messier. Maybe I wanted someone who'd see me as more than just my bank account. Maybe I wanted someone who'd tell me the truth instead of what they think I want to hear. Maybe I wanted. He stopped abruptly. Wanted what? Olivia pressed. Nothing. It doesn't matter. Tell me. Why? So you can use it against me. No. Because you asked for honesty. So be honest. Alexander stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly he said, I wanted someone real. In my life, everyone wears a mask. Everyone wants something. Everyone's playing an angle. And I'm so goddamn tired of it, Olivia. I'm tired of wondering what people really think. I'm tired of not knowing if anything anyone says to me is true. I'm tired of being alone in a room full of people. The raw vulnerability in his voice shocked her. This wasn't the cold businessman who'd presented her with a contract. This was something else. Someone else. Someone human. I'm real, Olivia said quietly. I'm angry and scared and out of my depth, but I'm real. And I'll tell you the truth, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. Will you? Yes. Because that's all I have left. My honesty. You took everything else. I didn't take it. You gave it. Same result. No. Alexander leaned forward. His intensity almost overwhelming. It's not the same. One is theft. The other is sacrifice. And what you did, saving your mother, saving your family, that was sacrifice. Don't diminish that. Olivia felt her eyes sting with unexpected tears. It doesn't feel like sacrifice. It feels like surrender. Then stop surrendering. How? Figure out what you want. Besides escaping this marriage. What do you actually want from life? And then go get it. Just like that. Just like that. You're Mrs. Alexander Sterling now. Use that power. Use my name. Use my money. Use every advantage you have to build the life you want. Within the confines of this arrangement. Yes. But the confines are broader than you think. Olivia studied him. The expensive shirt. The tired eyes. The way he held himself like he was braced for attack even in his own home. You're lonely, she realized suddenly. Alexander's jaw tightened. What? You're lonely. That's why you made this deal. Not just for respectability or legitimacy. You wanted someone who'd be real with you. Someone who'd stay. Even if they didn't love you. For a moment she thought he'd deny it. Laugh it off. Return to the cold businessman persona. Instead he said simply, yes. The words settled between them, heavy with truth. I'm lonely too, Olivia admitted. I've been lonely since the moment I signed that contract. Since the moment I realized I was going to spend the rest of my life with a stranger. We don't have to be strangers. Don't we? What else would you call two people who got married for every reason except love? Partners, Alexander said. Allies. Two people trying to make the best of an impossible situation. Is that enough for you? It has to be. He smiled slightly. What's that saying? You can't always get what you want, But you get what you need. We needed each other's resources. That's all. Maybe. Alexander stood, pushing back from the table. But maybe if we're lucky, we'll find something more. Like what? I don't know. Friendship. Understanding. God forbid, maybe even happiness. Olivia laughed and it felt good. The first genuine laugh she'd had in days. You're an optimist. No, I'm a realist. And realistically we're stuck together. We might as well make it bearable. He offered his hand. Truce. Can we at least try to be civil to each other? Olivia looked at his outstretched hand. Then slowly she took it. His palm was warm, his grip firm but not overwhelming. Truce, she agreed. They shook on it, sealing their new understanding. Good. Alexander released her hand. I have work to finish. But thank you for dinner. And for the conversation. Alexander. He paused at the doorway. Yes. Those rules you mentioned. About honesty and boundaries. What about them? Add one more, no pity. Don't feel sorry for me. Don't treat me like I'm fragile. I made this choice. I'll live with it. Something that might have been respect crossed his face. Deal. And you do the same for me. Deal. He left, and Olivia was alone again. But somehow, the house felt a little less empty than before. She returned to her room, changed into comfortable clothes, and stood at the window looking out at the moonlit grounds. Tomorrow, she'd start figuring out what she actually wanted from this life. She'd find purpose beyond just existing in this gilded cage. Tomorrow she'd start building something real. But tonight, she'd just done something she hadn't expected to do in this marriage. She'd had an honest conversation with her husband. It wasn't love. It wasn't even friendship yet. But it was a start. Olivia touched the platinum ring on her finger. And for the first time, it didn't feel quite so much like a shackle. Maybe Alexander Sterling was right. Maybe they could find something more than just a business arrangement. Or maybe that was just hope talking. Again. Chapter 3. Cracks in the Foundation. The charity gala was everything Olivia had dreaded and worse. 500 of New York's elite crammed into the ballroom of the Plaza Hotel, all wearing designer gowns and $1,000 tuxedos, all pretending to care about whichever cause they were supposedly supporting tonight. Children's literacy. Or was it hunger relief? Olivia had lost track. Smile, Alexander murmured against her ear as they posed for another photo. His hand was at the small of her back, their now familiar position. In public they were the perfect couple. Attentive, affectionate, believable. I am smiling. You look like you're in pain. I am in pain. These heels are torture devices. His lips twitched. You look stunning in them. Flattery won't make them hurt less. The photographer finished, and they were swept into the crowd. Handshakes, or kisses. Empty conversations with people whose names Olivia would forget before the night ended. Alexander. How wonderful to see you. A woman in her 50s, dripping diamonds, descended on them with the intensity of a heat-seeking missile. And this must be your lovely bride. Clarissa. Alexander's smile was polite, professional. May I introduce my wife, Olivia? Olivia, this is Clarissa Huntington. Her husband Harold is on my board of directors. Translation. Be nice to this woman or there will be consequences. It's lovely to meet you, Mrs. Huntington, Olivia said, extending her hand. Clarissa ignored it, going straight for the double-kiss greeting that Olivia was still getting used to. Oh, call me Clarissa, darling. We're all friends here. Her eyes scanned Olivia like a price scanner, tallying up everything from her dress to her jewelry to her worth as Alexander Sterling's wife. That's a gorgeous gown. Oscar. Valentino, actually. Clarissa's smile was sharp. How bold. The dismissal was subtle but clear. Wrong designer. Wrong choice. Wrong wife. If you'll excuse us, Alexander said smoothly, already guiding Olivia away. I see someone I need to speak with. They escaped into the crowd. Sorry about that, Alexander said once they were out of earshot. Clarissa Huntington is a barracuda in Chanel. He laughed, a real laugh that made his eyes crinkle at the corners. I was going to say particular, but yours is more accurate. How many more of her are here tonight? Approximately 499. Wonderful. They made their way through the crowd, Alexander stopping every few feet to greet someone, introduce Olivia, make the appropriate small talk. He was masterful at it, knowing exactly what to say, how long to linger, when to excuse himself. Olivia tried to keep up, but by the time they reached the bar, her face ached from smiling and her feet screamed for mercy. Champagne? Alexander asked. Whiskey. Neat. His eyebrow rose. Really? Really? I need something stronger than bubbles to survive this night. He ordered 2 whiskeys. They took their drinks to a quieter corner, away from the worst of the crowd. You're doing well, Alexander said. I'm dying inside. So is everyone else here. You're just more honest about it. Olivia sipped her whiskey, savoring the burn. Do you do this often? These galas? At least twice a month. Sometimes more during the busy season. And you actually enjoy this? God, no. He loosened his bow tie slightly. I hate every second of it. But it's necessary. Networking, maintaining relationships, being seen. The price of success. Sounds like a prison sentence. Isn't that what we're both serving? Alexander asked quietly. Different crimes, same sentence. Before Olivia could respond, a man approached. Tall, silver-haired, moving with the confidence of someone used to commanding attention. Sterling. About time you showed your face. Harold. Alexander's posture shifted subtly, becoming more formal. You know my wife, Olivia. Harold Huntington's assessment was even less subtle than his wife's had been. His eyes raked over Olivia with the appreciation of someone appraising livestock. Mrs. Sterling. Your husband is a lucky man. Thank you. Olivia kept her voice neutral, but her hand tightened on her glass. We need to talk, Harold said to Alexander, dismissing Olivia entirely. About the Singapore deal. The board has concerns. We can discuss it on Monday. We should discuss it now. Harold. It's fine, Olivia interrupted. I'll just mingle. Alexander's eyes met hers. She saw the apology there, the frustration, but also the resignation. This was business. Business came first. I won't be long, he promised. Take your time. She watched them walk away. Harold already talking numbers and percentages and profit margins. Alexander glanced back once, and she gave him a small smile. Fine. Oh. Alone in the crowd, Olivia suddenly felt more isolated than ever. She drifted through the gala, nursing her whiskey, trying to look like she belonged. People smiled at her. The curious, assessing smiles of society examining Alexander Sterling's unexpected choice of wife. She could almost hear their thoughts. Who is she? Where did she come from? How did she land him? You look like you'd rather be anywhere else. Olivia turned to find a woman about her age, dressed in a stunning red gown, holding 2 champagne flutes. You look like you brought reinforcements, Olivia replied. The woman laughed and offered one of the glasses. I saw you standing here looking miserable and thought you might need rescuing. I'm Victoria Chen. My father is the head of Chen Industries. You're Olivia Sterling, Alexander's surprise bride. Guilty as charged. These things are unbearable, aren't they? Victoria sipped her champagne. Everyone pretending to care about charity while really just showing off their wealth. You're very honest. Life's too short not to be. Victoria studied her. So, how did you end up married to the most eligible bachelor in New York? Everyone's dying to know. We met. We clicked. It happened fast. The lies came easily now. She'd been practicing. That's the official story, yes. Want to know what people are really saying? Not particularly, but I'm sure you'll tell me anyway. Victoria grinned. They're saying it's a business arrangement. That your family needed money and his family needed legitimacy. That it's all very practical and not at all romantic. And what do you think? I think it's none of my business. But I also think you're going to need allies in this world, Olivia Sterling. These people eat their young. Are you offering to be my ally? Maybe. Like you. You haven't pretended to care about my dress or my jewelry or asked who my plastic surgeon is. That's refreshing. Despite herself, Olivia smiled. You haven't had surgery. No, but it's usually the third question I get at these things. Victoria clinked her glass against Olivia's. To honesty in a world of liars. They talked for the next hour. Victoria was funny, sharp, and surprisingly kind. She pointed out the major players, explained the politics, gave Olivia a crash course in society navigation. That's Margaret Van Owen, Victoria murmured, nodding toward an elegant older woman. She's the gatekeeper. If she approves of you, others will follow. If she doesn't, I'm doomed. More or less. Oh, and avoid Richard Pemberton. He's handsy when he drinks. And definitely stay away from Lydia Ashford. She and Alexander dated briefly last year, and she's not happy about being replaced. Olivia's stomach tightened. He dated her. If you can call it that. They went to a few events together. It was very public, very strategic, and ended very suddenly. Victoria glanced at her. Didn't he tell you? We don't really discuss his past relationships. Probably smart. Although, fair warning, Lydia's here tonight. And she's been drinking. As if summoned, a stunning blonde in a white gown approached. Her smile was predatory. Victoria. How lovely to see you. The smile turned sharper as it landed on Olivia. And this must be Alexander's new wife. The pause before wife was deliberate and cutting. Lydia, Victoria said coolly. How are you? Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Lydia's eyes never left Olivia. Tell me, Mrs. Sterling, how did you meet Alexander? He's usually so careful about who he allows into his life. We met through mutual circumstances, Olivia replied, keeping her voice level. How delightfully vague. Lydia sipped her champagne. You know, Alexander and I were together for 6 months. He never mentioned wanting to get married. In fact, he specifically said he wasn't the marrying type. Strange how things change. People change, Olivia said. Do they? Or do they just adapt to new circumstances? Lydia leaned in, her voice dropping to a whisper. A word of advice, darling. Alexander Sterling doesn't do anything without calculating the cost and benefit. If he married you, it's because you provided something he needed. And once he doesn't need it anymore. She trailed off, letting the threat hang in the air. Lydia, Victoria warned. Oh, relax. I'm just welcoming her to the family. Lydia's smile was poisonous. After all, we're all adults here. We all know how these marriages work. Especially the arranged ones. She glided away, leaving her words like landmines behind. Victoria put a hand on Olivia's arm. Ignore her. She's bitter. She's also right. Olivia finished her champagne in one long swallow. This is an arrangement. I'm here because Alexander needed a wife. That's all. Is that all? What else would it be? I don't know. But the way he looks at you. What about it? Victoria smiled slightly. Nothing. Maybe I'm imagining things. Before Olivia could press, Alexander reappeared. He looked tense, his jaw tight. Victoria. Good to see you. Likewise. I was just keeping your wife company. Thank you. He turned to Olivia. Can I steal you away? There's someone I'd like you to meet. They excused themselves, moving back into the crowd. But instead of introducing her to anyone, Alexander led her toward the exit. Where are we going? Olivia asked. Getting some air. Unless you'd prefer to stay. God, no. They slipped out onto one of the plaza's terraces. The night air was cool, a relief after the overheated ballroom. The noise of the party faded to a distant murmur. Alexander leaned against the railing, his hands gripping the stone. Sorry about Harold. That took longer than expected. It's fine. No, it's not. I left you alone in there. I survived. Victoria Chen adopted me. He smiled. Victoria's good people. One of the few genuine ones in that crowd. Unlike Lydia Ashford. Alexander's smile vanished. You met Lydia. She made sure of it. What did she say? Nothing I didn't already know. Olivia joined him at the railing, looking out at the city lights. She reminded me that this marriage is a business arrangement. That you married me because I provided something you needed. Olivia. She's right, isn't she? Silence. Then. Yes. The word shouldn't have hurt. She'd known it all along. But somehow, hearing him confirm it, standing here in the moonlight wearing a dress that cost more than some cars, she felt the weight of it. I should have told you about Lydia, Alexander said quietly. About all of them. There have been women. None of them mattered. And I do. You're my wife. That's not an answer. Alexander turned to face her. In the dim light. His eyes were dark, unreadable. What do you want me to say, Olivia? That I married you for love. We both know that's not true. That I couldn't live without you. We'd known each other for 3 days. So what do you want? I don't know. The words burst out of her, louder than intended. I don't know what I want from you. I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know how to be your wife when we're essentially strangers playing pretend for an audience. We're not pretending right now. Aren't we? Even here alone we're still performing. Still maintaining the arrangement. What if I don't want to maintain it? Alexander asked suddenly. Olivia's breath caught. What? What if I want something real? What if I'm tired of performing, tired of pretending, tired of living my life like it's a business negotiation? Then you shouldn't have bought yourself a wife. Maybe I didn't buy a wife. Maybe I bought myself a chance. A chance at what? At not being alone anymore. The raw vulnerability in his voice shocked her. Do you have any idea what it's like? To be surrounded by people every day and still feel completely isolated. To never know if anyone actually sees you, or if they just see your bank account. No, Olivia admitted. But I know what it's like to lose everything that matters. To sacrifice yourself for someone else. To wake up every day in a life that doesn't feel like yours. Then we both understand loss. Understanding it doesn't make it easier. Alexander reached out, his hand hovering near her face. May I? Olivia nodded, not trusting her voice. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering against her cheek. The touch was gentle, almost reverent. I don't know how to do this, he confessed. How to be a husband. How to be with someone who didn't choose me because of what I could give them. I did choose you for what you could give me, Olivia reminded him. My mother's life. My family's survival. I know. And I'm grateful for your honesty. His hand fell away. But sometimes I wonder what would have happened if we'd met differently. If money and contracts and desperation hadn't been part of the equation. We probably never would have met at all. Probably not. He smiled sadly. Different worlds. Collided by necessity. Yes. They stood in silence, the city sprawling below them, the party continuing without them. I met your father today, Alexander said suddenly. He came to my office. Olivia's heart stuttered. Why? To thank me. For saving your mother. For keeping my end of the bargain. He met her eyes. And to ask if I was treating you well. What did you tell him? That I was trying. That I knew I'd forced you into an impossible situation. That I was doing my best not to make you miserable. Am I? Miserable? I don't know. Are you? Olivia considered. The last 2 weeks had been strange, difficult, often painful. But not unbearable. Alexander had kept his promises. Given her space. Respected her boundaries. Been surprisingly kind. No, she said finally. I'm not miserable. I'm adjusting. That's something at least. Alexander. Yes. Why did you really marry me? Not the board of directors story. Not the respectability angle. Why me specifically? He was quiet for so long she thought he might not answer. Then, because when I looked at you, I saw someone who understood what it was like to make impossible choices. Someone who'd sacrifice themselves for the people they loved. Someone real, in a world full of artifice. You saw all that in 3 days. I saw enough. He smiled slightly. Call it instinct, or desperation, or hope. Hope for what? For not being alone anymore. For finding someone who'd see past the money and the power to the man underneath. He laughed bitterly. Pathetic, isn't it? The great Alexander Sterling, desperate enough for companionship that he'd resort to buying it. It's not pathetic. Olivia surprised herself by meaning it. It's human. I wasn't sure I remembered how to be that. Human. Yes. She looked at him, really looked. Past the expensive tuxedo and the perfect hair and the carefully maintained persona. She saw the exhaustion in his eyes. The loneliness. The yearning for something real in a life built on transactions. She saw herself. I understand, she said quietly. More than you know. Do you? Yes. 'Cause I'm lonely too. I've been lonely since I signed that contract. Maybe even before. And I wake up every day in this beautiful house feeling like I'm drowning in silence. Then maybe we can be lonely together. Is that enough? It's more than I had before. Olivia felt something shift between them. Not love, they weren't there yet, might never be. But understanding. Connection. The first fragile threads of something that could, maybe, eventually become friendship. Or more. If they let it. We should go back inside, Alexander said, though he made no move to leave. People will talk if we're gone too long. Let them talk. Spoken like someone who isn't dependent on their good opinion. I'm Mrs. Alexander Sterling now. I'm dependent on their good opinion whether I like it or not. He smiled. You're learning. Unfortunately. They returned to the party. The rest of the night passed in a blur of introductions, small talk and performance. But something had changed. When Alexander's hand settled at the small of her back, it felt less like a prop and more like support. When their eyes met across the room, she saw understanding there. Maybe even the beginning of trust. It was past midnight when they finally made it back to the estate. Olivia's feet ached, her face hurt from smiling, and she wanted nothing more than to collapse into bed. In the foyer, Alexander paused. Thank you. For what? For tonight. For not running screaming when Lydia ambushed you. For tolerating Harold's rudeness. For being. He searched for the word. There. Where else would I be? I don't know. But I'm glad you stayed. They climbed the stairs together, their footsteps echoing in the quiet house. At the landing where the hallway split toward their separate rooms, they both hesitated. Good night, Olivia. Good night, Alexander. But neither moved. Finally, Alexander said, would you like to have breakfast together tomorrow? Not because we have to, but because I'd like the company. Olivia smiled. I'd like that too. 8 o'clock. I'll be there. He turned toward his room, then paused. Olivia. Yes. Tonight on the terrace. When I touched your face. Did that bother you? She thought about lying, about maintaining distance and safety. But he'd asked for honesty. No, she admitted. It didn't bother me. Something flickered in his eyes. Relief maybe, or hope. Good. That's good. They parted, each disappearing into their separate rooms. But as Olivia changed into her nightgown and climbed into bed, she realized something had shifted. The connecting door between their rooms remained locked. But the walls around her heart had developed their first tiny crack. Chapter 4. Breaking Points. The nightmare woke her at 3 in the morning. Olivia sat bolt upright in bed, gasping, her heart hammering against her ribs. The sheets were tangled around her legs, damp with sweat. In the dream, she'd been back in the hospital, watching her mother slip away, unable to save her, unable to do anything but watch. The soft knock at the connecting door. "Olivia!" Alexander's voice, rough with sleep. "Are you all right? I heard you cry out." She wanted to say yes, wanted to send him away, wanted to maintain the careful distance they'd been building around each other for the past month. Instead, she heard herself say, "No, Oz." Then, "May I come in? The door's locked." "I know. May I unlock it?" Olivia pulled the sheets up to her chin, suddenly aware she was wearing only a thin silk nightgown. But the fear from the dream still clung to her, and the thought of being alone with it was worse than the thought of Alexander seeing her vulnerable. "Yes." She heard the quiet click of the lock disengaging. The door opened slowly, and Alexander appeared in the doorway. He wore only pajama pants, his chest bare, his dark hair disheveled. In the dim light from her bedroom, he looked less like the polished businessman and more like a man who'd been woken from his own dreams. "Nightmare?" he asked softly. Olivia nodded, not trusting her voice. He moved into the room, keeping his distance, respecting her space even now. "Do you want to talk about it?" "My mother. In the dream, the treatment didn't work. She died, and it was my fault because I couldn't save her. But the treatment is working. You did save her." "I know. Logically, I know that. But in the dream..." She trailed off, the image of her mother's pale face still vivid behind her eyes. Alexander sat on the edge of the bed, not close but closer than he'd been in weeks. "My mother died when I was 12, he said quietly. "Cancer. We had all the money in the world, but it didn't matter. Some things can't be bought." Olivia looked at him in surprise. "You never mentioned that. You never asked about my family. You never asked about mine either. Beyond the relevant parts. That was wrong of me." He met her eyes. "What else should I know about you, Olivia Sterling?" The question hung between them, weighted with possibility. "I wanted to be a writer when I was young," Olivia heard herself say. "Before I became practical and got my teaching degree. I wanted to write novels. Love stories, specifically." "Ironic, isn't it?" She smiled bitterly. "I used to believe in grand romance. Soulmates. Love at first sight. All the things that turned out to be fairy tales. Maybe they are fairy tales. Or maybe we just found the wrong story. What's the right story then?" Alexander considered. "Maybe it's the one where two people choose each other every day, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." That sounds exhausting. It probably is. But it also sounds real. They sat in silence for a moment. Olivia realized her heart had stopped racing. The nightmare's grip had loosened. Alexander's presence, solid, real calm, had anchored her back to reality. "Thank you," she said, "for checking on me." "Of course." He stood to leave, then hesitated. "Olivia, if you have another nightmare, you can unlock the door from your side. You don't have to be alone with them. Won't that blur the boundaries we set? Maybe boundaries are meant to be adjusted as circumstances change." "And have they changed?" Alexander smiled slightly. "Haven't they?" He left, closing the connecting door softly behind him. But he didn't lock it. And neither did she. The next morning, Olivia woke to find a note slipped under her door. "Had to leave early for a trip to Boston. Back tomorrow evening. Mrs. Chen will take care of anything you need. Plus, I hope you slept better after the nightmare." Such a small thing, that postscript. But it meant he'd been thinking about her, caring about her well-being. It meant something was changing. Olivia spent the day exploring parts of the estate she hadn't ventured into yet. The library became her favorite discovery. Floor-to-ceiling shelves filled with books, a rolling ladder, deep leather chairs positioned by enormous windows. She could live in this room, she realized. Could be happy here, surrounded by stories. That evening, Victoria Chen called. "Rescue mission," she announced without preamble. There's a gallery opening downtown. It'll be pretentious and boring and full of people discussing the interplay of light and shadow, like it means something profound. Want to suffer together? Olivia laughed. When you put it that way, how can I refuse? Excellent. I'll pick you up at 7. The gallery was exactly as Victoria had described, full of people wearing black, drinking wine, nodding seriously at abstract paintings that looked like someone had thrown paint at a canvas and called it art. But it was also fun. Victoria kept up a running commentary that had Olivia fighting back laughter. They drank wine, ate tiny appetizers, and pretended to understand what the artist was exploring. "Oh God, incoming," Victoria muttered. "Lydia Ashford at 3 o'clock. Olivia turned to see Alexander's ex-girlfriend approaching, her smile sharp. "Olivia, what a surprise to see you here. Without your husband." "He's in Boston on business," Olivia replied smoothly. "I'm here with Victoria. How nice that you've found a friend." Lydia's tone suggested it was anything but nice. "Tell me, how is married life treating you? Alexander must be a very attentive husband." The implication was clear. Victoria stiffened beside Olivia, ready to defend, but Olivia spoke first. "He's wonderful actually. Thoughtful, kind, respectful. Everything I could want in a partner." "Really? That doesn't sound like the Alexander the first knew." "Then maybe you didn't know him as well as you thought." Lydia's smile froze. For a moment, genuine anger flashed in her eyes. "Enjoy it while it lasts, darling. Alexander Sterling gets bored easily. And when he does, he moves on to the next acquisition." She swept away, leaving a trail of expensive perfume and venom. "I'm sorry about her," Victoria said. "She's been insufferable since the wedding." "It's fine. She doesn't bother me." But that was a lie. Lydia's words had struck a nerve. Because she was right, wasn't she? Olivia was an acquisition. Purchased. Temporary. When Alexander no longer needed respectability, what would happen to her? "Hey!" Victoria squeezed her arm. "Don't let her get in your head. Whatever your arrangement with Alexander is, it's yours. Nobody else's business. You know it's an arrangement. Please. Everyone knows. But that doesn't mean it can't become something real." Victoria smiled. "I've seen the way he looks at you, Liv. That's not the look of a man going through the motions. How does he look at me? Like you're the only real thing in his world." Olivia wanted to believe that. But belief required hope, and hope had become a dangerous indulgence. Alexander returned the next evening at 9. Olivia was in the library, curled up in one of the leather chairs with a book, when she heard the front door open. She went to greet him, finding him in the foyer with Mrs. Chen, discussing something about dinner. "You're back," Olivia said. He turned and his face softened. "I am. How was your day?" "Good. I went to a gallery opening with Victoria." "Did you enjoy it? The company more than the art?" He smiled. "Victoria has that effect. Give me 10 minutes to change, and I'll join you for dinner." "You don't have to. You must be tired." "I am. But I'd like to anyway." Dinner was easy in a way it hadn't been before. They talked about his trip, her gallery visit, the books she'd been reading in the library. Simple conversation, nothing profound but comfortable. Natural. Like they were becoming friends. After dinner, Alexander walked her to the library. "I got you something in Boston," he said, pulling a wrapped package from his briefcase. "You didn't have to." "I know. But I saw it and thought of you." Olivia unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a leather-bound journal, expensive and beautiful, the pages thick and cream-colored. "For your writing," Alexander explained. "You said you used to want to write novels. Maybe you still can." Olivia stared at the journal, her throat tight. "I haven't written in years." "Then maybe it's time to start again." "Why would you do this?" "Because you gave up teaching for this marriage. The least I can do is give you something back." She looked up at him, This man who'd bought her hand in marriage but was trying somehow to give her pieces of herself back. "Thank you. You're welcome." He hesitated, then added, "I unlocked the connecting door. From my side. If you have nightmares again, you can knock. Or just come through. Whatever you need." "Alexander, I'm not asking for anything," he interrupted. "I'm just saying you don't have to be alone. Not anymore." He left her there, holding the journal, her heart doing something complicated in her chest. That night, Olivia opened the journal and wrote for the first time in years. Not a story, just thoughts, feelings. The strange, confusing reality of her life. And when she finally turned off the light and settled into bed, she found herself looking at the connecting door. Still unlocked. Still an option. She fell asleep facing it, and for once, the nightmare stayed away. The next week brought an unexpected development. Alexander's father announced he was coming to visit. "He wants to meet you," Alexander said over breakfast. His jaw tight. "I tried to put him off, but he's insisting." "You don't want me to meet him." "I don't want him anywhere near you." He set down his coffee cup with more force than necessary. "My father is difficult, critical, demanding. And he'll say things designed to hurt you." "Why?" "Because that's what he does. He finds weaknesses and exploits them." Sounds charming. "He's anything but." Alexander met her eyes. "If he says anything inappropriate, if he makes you uncomfortable in any way, tell me. We'll end the visit immediately." "Alexander, I can handle an uncomfortable dinner. This isn't just uncomfortable. This is." He trailed off, frustration clear in every line of his body. "He's the reason I am the way I am. The reason I learned to see everything as a transaction, everyone as either an asset or a liability. He taught you that. He beat it into me. Metaphorically, usually. Sometimes literally." Olivia's breath caught. "He hit you. Only when I disappointed him. Which was often." Alexander's smile was bitter. "Don't look at me like that. I survived. I built an empire in spite of him, maybe because of him. But I don't want him poisoning you with his particular brand of cruelty." "Then why let him visit at all?" "Because he's still a major shareholder in my company. And because refusing would give him ammunition to use against me with the board." He reached across the table, taking her hand. "But you don't have to do this. I can say you're ill, traveling, anything." Olivia looked at their joined hands. This was the most openly protective he'd been, the most vulnerable. He was trying to shield her from his father the way she'd tried to shield her mother from death. "I want to meet him," she said firmly. "I want to understand where you came from." "Why?" "Because knowing you matters to me now." Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, then gratitude, then something warmer she couldn't quite name. "All right," he said quietly. "But remember I warned you." Richard Sterling arrived on Saturday afternoon in a Bentley with a driver and the demeanor of someone who owned the world and found it disappointing. He was tall like Alexander, with silver hair and the same storm-gray eyes. But where Alexander's gaze held warmth beneath the businessman's mask, Richard's was ice all the way through. "Father." Alexander's greeting was formal. His posture rigid. "Welcome, Alexander." Richard's eyes swept over his son, assessing, judging, finding him somehow wanting. Then his gaze landed on Olivia. "And this must be the bride." "Olivia, my father, Richard Sterling." "Father, my wife, Olivia." Olivia extended her hand. "It's nice to meet you, Mr. Sterling." Richard's handshake was brief, perfunctory. "Is it? We'll see." They moved to the formal living room, a space Olivia had never actually used, too stuffy and ornate for comfort. Mrs. Chen served tea and small sandwiches that no one touched. "So," Richard said, settling into a chair like it was a throne. "Tell me about yourself, Olivia. Your family background, education, accomplishments." It wasn't a friendly request. It was an interrogation. I have a degree in education from NYU, Olivia replied, keeping her voice steady. I taught second grade for 3 years before marrying Alexander. My family has been in New York for 5 generations. Yes, the Morrison name. That's why my son married you, I presume. For the legitimacy your old money name provides his new money empire. Father, Alexander warned. Oh, come now. Let's not pretend this is a love match. Richard's smile was cruel. I know a business arrangement when I see one. I've made enough of them myself. Then you understand why it makes sense, Olivia said calmly, refusing to be rattled. I understand why it makes sense for you. My son gets you legitimacy, your family gets his money. But what does Alexander actually get beyond a name? Do you bring anything of value to this marriage? That's enough. Alexander's voice was cold steel. You don't speak to my wife that way. I'm merely asking questions. No, you're being deliberately cruel, which is your specialty. But Olivia is not one of your business associates. She's my wife, and you will treat her with respect or you'll leave. Father and son stared at each other, a lifetime of conflict playing out in that locked gaze. Finally Richard laughed, a cold, mirthless sound. Well, at least she's made you grow a spine. That's something, I suppose. The rest of the visit was torture. Richard made subtle digs at everything. The food, the house, Alexander's business decisions, Olivia's background. Each comment was calculated to wound, delivered with the precision of a surgeon who knew exactly where to cut. Alexander endured it with practiced calm, but Olivia could see the tension in his shoulders, the tightness around his eyes. This was the man who'd shaped him, molded him, broken him and put him back together harder and colder. No wonder Alexander had learned to see the world as a battlefield. Finally, mercifully, Richard announced he needed to leave. Business dinner. Some of us still work for a living. The dig at Alexander was clear. They saw him to his car. As he climbed in, Richard looked back at Olivia. A word of advice, Mrs. Sterling. My son is very good at making people believe he has a heart. Don't fall for it. Everything he does is calculated. Even this marriage. Maybe, Olivia replied. But I'd rather be married to someone who calculates how to protect the people he cares about than someone who calculates how to destroy them. Richard's eyes narrowed. Then unexpectedly he smiled. A real smile, though still not warm. Perhaps you're not as soft as I thought. But you'll need that steel if you want to survive in this family. The Bentley pulled away. Alexander stood frozen in the driveway, watching his father disappear. His hands were clenched into fists. His jaw so tight Olivia worried he'd crack a tooth. Alexander. I'm sorry. His voice was rough. I'm so sorry you had to endure that. I've endured worse. Have you? He turned to her, and she was shocked to see moisture in his eyes. Not quite tears, but close. Because I've spent my entire life enduring him, and I'm not sure I've survived it intact. Olivia did something she'd never done before. She closed the distance between them and pulled him into a hug. For a moment he stood rigid, shocked. Then his arms came around her, holding on like she was the only solid thing in a world trying to sweep him away. He's wrong, Olivia whispered against his chest. About you. About this. You're not heartless. You're not calculating in the way he thinks. You're trying to protect yourself the only way you know how. Am I? Or am I exactly what he made me? You're what you choose to be. And right now you're choosing to care. I see it. Alexander pulled back just enough to look at her. His hands came up to frame her face, his thumbs brushing her cheekbones. How do you do that? Do what? Make me feel human. Real. Like I'm more than just my worst impulses. Because you are. He leaned his forehead against hers, and they stood there in the driveway as the sun set, two people trying to figure out how to be more than the sum of their scars. Olivia. His breath ghosted across her lips. Yes. May I kiss you? Really kiss you, not for show. Her heart hammered. This was a line they hadn't crossed. A boundary that, once breached, would change everything. Yes, she whispered. His lips met hers gently at first, questioning. But when she responded, when her hands fisted in his shirt and pulled him closer, the kiss deepened, became real, became a promise of something neither of them had dared hope for. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Alexander rested his forehead against hers again. That was real, Olivia finished. Yes. He smiled, and it was the first fully genuine smile she'd ever seen from him. Very real. They went inside, hands linked, something fundamental shifted between them. That night, the connecting door stayed unlocked. And this time, when Olivia knocked softly at 3 a.m, another nightmare stealing her sleep, Alexander was there immediately. "Come here," he said simply, holding back the covers of his bed. She hesitated only a moment before climbing in beside him. He pulled her close, her head on his chest, his arms around her, solid and warm and safe. "Sleep," he murmured. "I've got you." And for the first time since signing that contract, Olivia felt like she was home. Chapter 5. The storm inside. They didn't talk about the kiss, or about Olivia sleeping in Alexander's bed that night, or the 3 nights after that when nightmares drove her through the connecting door to find safety in his arms. They didn't talk about how natural it felt to wake up tangled together, or how hard it was becoming to maintain the fiction that this was still just a business arrangement. Instead, they fell into a rhythm. Breakfast together. Alexander leaving for work with a kiss that lingered a beat too long. Dinners where they actually talked, actually laughed, actually enjoyed each other's company. Evenings in the library, reading in comfortable silence, occasionally looking up to find the other already watching. Felt like courtship, Olivia realized. Like they were dating despite already being married. Like they were falling. She didn't let herself finish that thought. But Victoria noticed. "You're glowing," her friend announced over lunch at a cafe in Manhattan. "And I don't mean pregnancy glowing. I mean happy glowing." "What's Alexander done?" "Nothing. Everything." "I don't know." Olivia pushed her salad around her plate. "We're adjusting. Getting along better. Getting along doesn't make people glow like you just won the lottery." "We kissed." Victoria's fork clattered against her plate. "You what?" "After his father visited. It was this whole horrible thing, and then we were standing in the driveway and he asked permission and it was the most real thing I've felt since this all started." Victoria grinned. "Oh, you're in so much trouble." "What? Why?" "Because you're falling for him. Your arranged marriage, bought and paid for husband. You're actually falling for him." "I am not." "Liv, you're glowing. You can't stop smiling. And the way you just said his name. You're gone." Olivia opened her mouth to protest, then closed it. Was she falling for Alexander Sterling? The man who'd essentially bought her. The man who checked on her nightmares, gave her journals for writing, defended her against his father's cruelty. The man whose arms felt like home. "Oh God," she whispered. "I am, aren't I?" "Completely." Victoria squeezed her hand. "And you know what? I think he's falling for you too. Don't give me hope. This isn't that kind of story." "Why not?" "Because he married me for legitimacy. For business. Not for love. Maybe that's how it started. But that's not how it's going." Victoria leaned forward. "Listen to me. I've known Alexander Sterling for 5 years. I've seen him with dozens of women. Beautiful, accomplished, brilliant women. And I've never, ever seen him look at any of them the way he looks at you. How does he look at me? Like your heir and he's been drowning." Olivia was still thinking about that conversation when she got home that evening. The house was quiet. Alexander had texted that he'd be late, some emergency at the office. She wandered to the library, intending to write, but found herself unable to focus. Victoria's words kept echoing. "You're falling for him. He's falling for you too. Was it possible? Could something real bloom from such artificial beginnings?" She was still pondering this when she heard shouting from the foyer. Olivia rushed out to find Alexander arguing with a man she didn't recognize. Tall, well-dressed, angry. "You can't cut me out," the man was shouting. "We had a deal. We had a tentative agreement that you violated when you tried to backdoor negotiate with my competitors." Alexander's voice was ice cold. "The deal is off, Marcus. You're done. I'll ruin you. I'll tell everyone how you really do business. Go ahead. See where that gets you." Alexander stepped closer, and something about his posture made the man stumble back. "But if you threaten me or my company or my family again, you'll find out exactly how ruthless I can be." "Family?" Marcus's eyes landed on Olivia, and his smile turned nasty. "Oh, the trophy wife. Tell me, sweetheart, does he actually touch you? Or are you just window dressing for his empire?" Alexander moved so fast Olivia almost missed it. One moment he was 5 feet away. The next he had Marcus by the collar, slammed against the wall. "You don't speak to her. You don't look at her. You don't think about her." Each word was delivered with quiet, lethal intensity. "Roberts, show Mr. Castellan out. Permanently. He's banned from this property." The butler appeared, somehow conjuring security. Marcus was escorted out, still shouting threats. When the door closed, silence fell like a hammer. Alexander stood with his back to her, his shoulders rigid, his hands clenched into fists. "Alexander." Olivia approached cautiously. "I'm sorry you had to see that." "Who was he?" "A business associate who turned out to be less than trustworthy." He turned to face her, and she was shocked by the fury still burning in his eyes. "He had no right to speak to you that way. I've been called worse. Not in my house. Not by anyone." He ran a hand through his hair, the gesture agitated. "I should have thrown him out the moment he arrived. I knew he was here to cause problems." "Why didn't you?" "Because I wanted to handle it professionally. Calmly." He laughed bitterly. "But then he looked at you and I just snapped. You protected me. I wanted to destroy him." The admission seemed to cost him something. "For a moment there, I wanted to hurt him for even implying." He broke off, jaw clenched. Olivia closed the distance between them and took his still clenched fist in her hands. Slowly, she uncurled his fingers, smoothing them flat. "Hey. It's okay." "No, it's not. That rage, that violence, that's my father. That's exactly what he would have done. But you didn't do it. You sent him away. You controlled it. Barely. But you did." She brought his hand to her cheek, holding it there. "You're not your father, Alexander. You're not him." "How can you be sure?" "Because your father would never ask that question. He wouldn't care if he was a monster. But you do. You care." Alexander pulled her close, his arms banding around her tight enough that she could feel his heart racing against her chest. "I don't want to be like him," he whispered against her hair. "I don't want to be cold and cruel and so consumed by business that I forget how to be human." "Then don't be. Choose something else. Choose differently." "What if I don't know how?" "Then we figure it out together." He pulled back to look at her. "Why are you so kind to me? After everything, the contract, the arrangement, the way I essentially bought you. Why don't you hate me?" "Because I'm getting to know the man underneath the businessman. And that man." She touched his face gently. "That man is worth knowing." "Olivia." His voice cracked slightly. "I need to tell you something." "What?" "This marriage. It was supposed to be temporary." Her heart stopped. "What?" "The contract has a clause. After 2 years, if either of us wants out, we can divorce. Quietly, amicably, with the terms already negotiated. Your mother's treatment continues regardless. Your father's company remains stable. You lose nothing. You're telling me I can leave. I'm telling you that you were always going to be able to leave. I built in an escape clause because I didn't want you to feel trapped forever." He took her hands. "But the thing is, Olivia, I don't want you to use it." "You don't?" "No. I know I have no right to ask you to stay. I know this started as a transaction, but somewhere along the way it became more for me. And I need you to know that if you choose to stay, it won't be because of a contract or an obligation. It'll be because you want to. Olivia stared at him, her mind reeling. An escape clause. She could leave. In less than 2 years she could walk away, free and clear. She should feel relieved. Instead she felt terrified. Because somewhere along the way, this cage had started to feel like home. I don't know what to say, she admitted. You don't have to say anything now. I just wanted you to know. Wanted you to have a choice. Choices are dangerous. Why? Because now I have to figure out what I actually want. Not what I need to do to save my family or fulfill an obligation. What I want. And that scares you. Terrifying me, actually. She laughed, but it was shaky. What if I want the wrong thing? What if I want something I can't have? Like what? She looked at him, really looked. At the man who'd invaded her life, upended everything, and somehow made her feel more alive than she had in years. Like you, she whispered. What if I want you, Alexander? Not your money or your name or your house. Just you. The words hung between them, raw and honest and impossible to take back. Alexander's eyes darkened. Olivia, I'm falling for you. The confession burst out of her. I know it's stupid. I know this was never supposed to be real. But I can't help it. When I wake up in your arms, I feel safe. When you kiss me, I feel alive. When you're not here, the house feels empty. And I don't know when it happened or how, but somewhere between the contract and now, I fell. He kissed her, cutting off her words. His hands cupping her face like she was precious, fragile, essential. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. I'm falling too, he admitted. I've been falling since you walked down that aisle looking like you were marching to your execution but doing it anyway. Since you stood up to my father. Since you saw past the money and the power to the man underneath. What do we do now? I don't know. This wasn't in my business plan. Despite everything, Olivia laughed. Love wasn't in your business plan. Love. Alexander pulled back to look at her. His expression vulnerable. Is that what this is? I don't know. Maybe. Probably. She shook her head. God, I'm terrible at this. I sound like a teenager. You sound honest. I love that about you. That word again. Love. He smiled slightly. Maybe I should get used to saying it. Olivia Morrison Sterling, I'm falling in love with you. It's inconvenient, unexpected, and absolutely terrifying. But it's real. Tears stung her eyes. This is the strangest romance novel I've ever lived. Are we living a romance now? Maybe. If you want to be. I want. He stopped, his phone buzzing insistently in his pocket. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and his expression darkened. Damn it. What is it? Office emergency. Real one this time. I have to go. Now. Now. He kissed her quickly. I'm sorry. We'll finish this conversation tonight. Promise. Promise. Another kiss, deeper this time. Don't disappear on me while I'm gone. I'm not going anywhere. Good. 'Cause I'm not either. Not anymore. He grabbed his briefcase and rushed out, leaving Olivia standing in the foyer with her heart pounding and her world tilted on its axis. I'm falling in love with you. He'd said it. Loud. Made it real. And she'd said it back. Olivia pressed her hands to her face, trying to process. This morning, she'd been living in a business arrangement. Tonight, she was in love with her husband. How had her life become a romance novel? She spent the rest of the evening in a daze, unable to focus on anything. She tried to write, but the words wouldn't come. Tried to read, but couldn't concentrate. Tried to eat dinner, but had no appetite. All she could think about was Alexander's face when he'd said those words. The vulnerability, the hope, the fear, the love. It was past midnight when she heard his car in the driveway. She was in the library, still in her clothes from earlier, still unable to settle. Alexander appeared in the doorway, looking exhausted. His tie was loose, his shirt wrinkled, his hair a mess from running his hands through it. "Hey," he said softly. "Hey. Emergency resolved. For now." He crossed to where she sat, kneeling beside her chair. "I've been thinking about you all night. Good thoughts or bad thoughts. Terrifying thoughts. About how much I need you. About how you've become essential to my existence in just 6 weeks." He took her hands. "Olivia, I need you to understand something. I'm not good at this. Feelings. At vulnerability. My father beat that out of me young. But you make me want to try." "I'm not good at it either," she admitted. "My whole life has been about being practical, responsible, doing what needs to be done. I never let myself want things just because I wanted them. What do you want now?" She looked at him, this impossible man who'd bought her hand in marriage and somehow won her heart. "I want this to be real," she said. "I want us to stop pretending this is just business. I want to fall asleep in your arms not because of nightmares but because that's where I belong. I want me," he finished. "You." Alexander stood, pulling her up with him. "Then have me. I'm yours, Olivia. However you want me. For as long as you'll keep me." This kiss was different from all the others. This one was a promise. Commitment. A choice made freely, without contracts or obligations or desperation. This one was love. When they finally broke apart, Alexander scooped her up, making her laugh in surprise. "What are you doing?" "Carrying my wife to bed. The way I should have done on our wedding night. That's incredibly old-fashioned. Humor me." He carried her up the stairs, down the hall, but instead of stopping at her room, he continued to his. "No more separate rooms," he said firmly. "Not unless you want them." "I don't want them." "Good." He set her down gently beside his bed. "Olivia, I want to be very clear. This is your choice. If you want to wait, if you're not ready." She kissed him, cutting off his words. "I'm ready. I'm choosing this. I'm choosing you." "Thank God," he breathed against her lips. That night, the business arrangement became a marriage. The transaction became a love story. And two people who'd come together out of desperation found something neither had expected. Hope. Chapter 6. When everything falls apart. Olivia woke to an empty bed and a note. "Emergency board meeting. We'll explain tonight." She tried not to worry. Emergency meetings were normal in Alexander's world. But something about the terse note made her uneasy. That unease proved justified when Victoria called at noon. "Turn on the news," she said without preamble. "Channel 7. Olivia grabbed the remote with shaking hands and turned on the television. The business anchor was speaking. "Allegations of fraud against Sterling Industries have sent shockwaves through the financial district. An anonymous whistleblower has provided documents suggesting the company engaged in insider trading, tax evasion, and falsified earnings reports. CEO Alexander Sterling has declined to comment, but sources close to the investigation say criminal charges may be pending." The remote fell from Olivia's nerveless fingers. Fraud. Insider trading. Criminal charges. Her phone rang. Her father. "Olivia, thank God. Have you heard? I'm watching it now. This is bad. If they can prove even half of these allegations, Alexander could face prison time. And if the company collapses, Mom's treatment." Olivia's voice sounded hollow to her own ears. "If the company fails, the money stops. We'll figure something out." "There is nothing to figure out, Dad. Without Alexander's money, Mom dies. That was always the arrangement." She hung up before he could respond, her hands shaking. This couldn't be happening. Not now. Not when she'd finally let herself hope. Not when she'd fallen in love. The front door opened. Olivia rushed to the foyer to find Alexander standing there, looking like he'd aged 10 years in 8 hours. His suit was wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot, his face gray with exhaustion. "You saw," he said flatly. "Everyone saw. Alexander, what's happening? Someone's trying to destroy me." He walked past her toward his office, and she followed. "The documents are fakes, excellent fakes, but proving that will take time. And in the meantime, the company's stock is plummeting, partners are pulling out, and the board is talking about removing me as CEO. Can they do that? If they believe I'm a liability, yes." He poured himself a whiskey with shaking hands. "Everything I've built, 30 years of work, gone in a single news cycle. We'll fight this. We'll prove the documents are fake. We." He laughed bitterly. "There is no we here, Olivia. This is my problem. You're my husband. Your problems are my problems." "No." He set down the glass without drinking. "No, they're not. In fact, this might be the perfect time to use that escape clause I told you about." Olivia felt like she'd been slapped. "What? Leave? Before this scandal touches you. Before your family name gets dragged through the mud with mine." "I'm not leaving you. You should. It's the smart move." "Since when do I make smart moves?" She grabbed his arm, forcing him to look at her. "I married you knowing everyone thought I was selling myself. I fell in love with you knowing it could destroy me. I'm not running now just because things got difficult. This isn't difficult, Olivia. This is catastrophic. If I'm convicted, you won't be. Because you didn't do anything wrong. You don't know that." The words hung between them, sharp and painful. "I don't know that," Olivia repeated slowly. "Are you saying you did do these things?" "I'm saying I've done a lot of things to build this company. Not all of them were strictly ethical. But fraud. Insider trading. No, never that. But I've bent rules, exploited loopholes, destroyed competitors without mercy." He met her eyes. "I told you once I wasn't sure I was still human. Maybe this is the universe proving I was right." "Stop it." Olivia grabbed his face between her hands. "You're spiraling. You're catastrophizing. We don't know what's going to happen yet." "I know what's going to happen. I've seen it before. Someone gets targeted, evidence magically appears, careers implode, lives get destroyed. The only question is how many people I take down with me. Then we figure out who's doing this and we stop them." "How?" "Have enemies, Olivia. Dozens of them. People whose businesses I've dismantled, whose careers I've ended. This could be any of them. Then we make a list and—" "No." He pulled away from her touch. "No, you don't get involved in this. It's too dangerous. I'm already involved. I'm your wife. A wife I bought. A wife who could leave tomorrow with a clear conscience and everyone's blessing." His laugh was hollow. "God, you must be regretting ever signing that contract. The only thing I regret is not realizing sooner what you were to me. What I was. Past tense. What you are," she corrected. "Alexander, I love you." She saw him flinch like the words were a physical blow. "Don't," he said hoarsely. "Don't say that. Not now. Not when everything's falling apart. Especially now. Because you need to hear it. What I need is to protect you from this mess." He grabbed his car keys. "I'm going back to the office. Don't wait up. Alexander." But he was already gone, the front door closing behind him with a finality that made Olivia's chest ache. She stood in the empty foyer, her heart pounding, her world crumbling. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. They were supposed to have time. Time to build something real, something lasting. Time to figure out how to love each other without the weight of contracts and arrangements and desperation. But time, it seemed, had run out. Alexander didn't come home that night. Or the next night. He sent brief texts, "I'm fine. Working on fixing this. Stay safe." But wouldn't answer her calls. The media frenzy intensified. Every news channel carried updates. The investigation was expanding. More evidence was surfacing. Alexander's face was everywhere, accompanied by words like scandal and fraud and fallen empire. Olivia's family called repeatedly. Friends she hadn't heard from in months suddenly wanted to check in. Society women who'd pretended to be friendly now whispered behind their hands at charity events. And through it all, Alexander stayed away. "He's protecting you," Victoria said when she came to visit on the third day. "In his messed-up way. He thinks keeping distance will keep you safe. I don't want to be safe. I want to help. Then find out who's behind this." "How?" "Start with his enemies. Someone orchestrated this. Someone with resources, connections, and a serious grudge. That narrows it down." Olivia spent the next 2 days digging. She called in favors from Victoria's connections. She researched Alexander's business rivals. She looked for patterns, inconsistencies, anything that might point to the real culprit. And then she found it. A name that appeared repeatedly in connection with Alexander's most controversial deals. Marcus Castellan. The man Alexander had thrown out of their house. The man who'd threatened revenge. The man who had both motive and means. Olivia called Alexander immediately. It went to voicemail. "Alexander, it's me. I know who's behind the fraud allegations. It's Marcus Castellan. I have evidence, transaction records, communications, everything. Call me back." She waited. An hour. Nothing. Finally, she did what she'd sworn not to do. She went to his office. Sterling Industries headquarters was chaos. Reporters camped outside, security doubled, employees looking shell-shocked. Olivia pushed through, using her name and position to get past security. Alexander's assistant looked surprised to see her. "Mrs. Sterling. Where is he?" "Conference room B. But he's in a meeting with the board." Olivia was already moving. She burst into the conference room to find Alexander surrounded by stern-faced executives. "Recommend your immediate resignation," one was saying. "Before this damages the company beyond repair." "Mrs. Sterling." Another board member stood. "This is a private meeting." "It's Marcus Castellan," Olivia interrupted, looking only at Alexander. "He's the one behind the fraud allegations. I have proof." Alexander stared at her, something between horror and hope flickering in his eyes. "Olivia, what are you?" "I have transaction records showing he paid the whistleblower. Communications proving he fabricated the documents. Bank transfers, emails, everything." She pulled out the folder Victoria had helped her compile. "He wanted revenge for you killing his deal. So he decided to destroy you." One of the board members grabbed the folder, scanning the contents. His expression shifted from skeptical to shocked. "My God. If this is legitimate." "It is," Olivia said firmly. "I've had it verified by 3 independent sources." Alexander stood abruptly. "Everyone out. Now." The board members filed out, still examining the documents. The door closed, leaving Olivia and Alexander alone. "What the hell were you thinking?" Alexander's voice was low and dangerous. "I told you to stay out of this. And I told you I wasn't going anywhere. You had no right. I had every right. I'm your wife, Alexander. Not a business associate you can compartmentalize and protect through distance. Your wife. A wife I'm trying to keep safe. I don't need you to keep me safe. I need you to trust me. To let me stand beside you instead of hiding behind walls you think will protect me. Those walls exist for a reason. Yes, because your father taught you that caring about people makes you weak. But he was wrong, Alexander. Letting me in, letting me help, that doesn't make you weak. It makes you human." Alexander stared at her, emotions warring across his face. "You shouldn't have risked yourself. If Castellan found out you were investigating." "He didn't. And now you have evidence to clear your name." She crossed to him, taking his hands. "Let me be here for you. Let me help carry this burden. Isn't that what marriage is supposed to be?" "I don't know. I've never had a real one before." "Neither have I. So let's figure it out together." For a long moment he just looked at her. Then, slowly, he pulled her into his arms, holding on like she was the only thing keeping him grounded. "I'm sorry," he whispered against her hair. "I'm sorry I pushed you away. I'm sorry I tried to protect you by leaving. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing and kiss me." He did, and it felt like coming home after a long exile. When they finally broke apart, Alexander rested his forehead against hers. "How did you find all this?" "Victoria helped. And I may have called in some favors from her father's private investigation firm. My wife, the detective. Your wife, the partner. Whether you like it or not. I'm starting to like it very much." The next week was a whirlwind. The evidence against Marcus Castellan was irrefutable. He was arrested. The charges against Alexander were dropped. The stock recovered. The board apologized. Sterling Industries survived. And through it all, Olivia and Alexander faced it together. Side by side. Partners in every sense of the word. The night the investigation officially closed, they sat in the library, wrapped in each other's arms, watching the news coverage that finally vindicated him. "I should have trusted you from the beginning," Alexander said quietly. "You were scared. You thought you were protecting me. I was being a coward. Repeating my father's pattern of pushing people away when things get difficult. But you didn't push me away. Not really. I wouldn't let you." He smiled. "No, you wouldn't. You're stubborn that way. One of my many charms. One of hundreds." He turned her face toward his. "Olivia Morrison Sterling, you saved me. Not just my company or my reputation. You saved me from myself. That's what love does." "Is it?" "Because I'm still learning what love looks like." "It looks like this," Olivia said, gesturing to them tangled together. "It looks like choosing to stay when running would be easier. It looks like fighting for each other even when we're fighting with each other. Then I choose love. And I choose you. Every day for the rest of my life. Even though I'm stubborn and nosy and investigate your enemies without permission. Especially because of that." He kissed her softly. "You're real, Olivia. You're the most real thing in my life. And I'm never letting you go." "Good. Because I'm not going anywhere." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the fire crackle in the fireplace, both of them processing everything that had happened. "Alexander," Olivia said eventually. About that escape clause in the contract." She felt him tense. "What about it? I want you to tear it up." He pulled back to look at her. "What?" "The contract, the clause, all of it. I don't want an exit strategy anymore. I want this to be real and permanent and everything a marriage should be." "Olivia, I'm not asking for a new contract. I'm asking for something better, a promise. Lois. A commitment that has nothing to do with obligations or arrangements or business deals." Alexander's eyes were suspiciously bright. "Are you asking me to marry you? Again. I'm asking us to choose each other. Freely. Without conditions or exit clauses or safety nets. Then yes." He cupped her face in his hands. "Yes to choosing you. Yes to building something real. Yes to love without conditions. Even though we started this all wrong. Especially because we started it wrong. It means everything we've built is intentional. Fought for. Real." Olivia kissed him, and it tasted like promise and hope and future. "I love you," she whispered against his lips. "I love you too," he replied. "My impossible, stubborn, perfect wife." "Yours," she agreed. "Always yours." And for the first time since signing that contract, Olivia felt completely, perfectly free. Chapter 7. Building Something Real. The morning started like most mornings now. Tangled in Alexander's arms, sunlight streaming through windows, the world peaceful and quiet before the day began. "We should get up," Olivia murmured against his chest. "Should we?" His arms tightened around her. "I can think of better ways to spend the morning. You have a 9 o'clock meeting. Reschedule it." Alexander Sterling, skipping meetings. "Who are you and what have you done with my workaholic husband?" He laughed, the sound warm and genuine. Your husband is learning that some things are more important than business. Like this. He rolled them over, trapping her beneath him, his eyes dark with intent. Like you. The meeting was definitely rescheduled. An hour later, they finally made it downstairs to breakfast. Mrs. Chen smiled knowingly as she served coffee and eggs. You look happy, Mrs. Sterling, she said. I am happy. And it was true. The past 2 months since the Castellan scandal had been transformative. Without the weight of secrets and half-truths, they'd built something real. Something that looked remarkably like actual love. Alexander had changed too. He still worked hard, still ran his empire with precision and intelligence. But he came home for dinner now. He took weekends off. He'd even agreed to go on vacation next month. Their first real honeymoon, 4 months late but exactly on time. What are your plans today? Alexander asked, scrolling through emails on his phone. Old habits died hard. Meeting with Victoria. She's trying to convince me to join her on some charity board. You should do it. Should I? You need something that's yours. Not mine, not ours. Yours. He set down his phone, giving her his full attention. Something else he'd learned to do. What do you want to do, Olivia? Really want. Not just what's expected of Mrs. Alexander Sterling. She'd been thinking about this. Look, I want to write. You've been writing every morning in that journal I gave you. I know. But I want to write something real. A novel, maybe. Or, she hesitated, the idea still half-formed. Or maybe something about arranged marriages. About how they can become real. Alexander smiled. Sounds like quite a story. It is. Though I doubt anyone would believe it. Why not? Because people don't actually fall in love in arranged marriages. That's not how the world works. And yet here we are. He reached across the table, taking her hand. Proof that sometimes the world works in unexpected ways. Olivia laced her fingers with his, marveling at how natural this had become. How easy. Do you ever regret it? The contract, the arrangement, all of it. Regret finding you? Never. He brought her hand to his lips. Though I do regret how we started. I wish I'd met you differently. Courted you properly. Given you the choice before binding you to me. We gave ourselves that choice later. When we decided to stay. True. He stood, pulling her up with him. I have to go to the office. But tonight I'm taking you somewhere. Where? It's a surprise. Wear something nice. He kissed her thoroughly and left, leaving Olivia wondering what he was planning. Victoria met her for lunch at a trendy restaurant in Midtown. You're glowing again, her friend announced. It's actually annoying how happy you look. I am happy. Good. You deserve it. Victoria sipped her wine. So, about this charity board. It's for literacy programs in underprivileged schools. Right up your alley, former teacher. You're really pushing this. Because you need something beyond being Alexander Sterling's wife. Don't get me wrong, the man is delicious and you're clearly in love. But you need your own identity too. Olivia considered. Victoria was right. As much as she loved her life with Alexander, she was still figuring out who Olivia Sterling was. Not Morrison, not her father's daughter, not Alexander's wife. Okay, she said. I'll do it. Really. Really. Send me the information. Victoria grinned. Excellent. First meeting is next week. Oh, and speaking of meetings. Have you heard the rumors about Alexander's father? Olivia's good mood dimmed. What rumors? Richard Sterling is apparently furious about how Alexander handled the Castellan situation. Word is he tried to push the board to remove Alexander as CEO during the scandal, and he's not happy that it backfired. He tried to have his own son removed. Apparently, family loyalty isn't really Richard Sterling's strong suit. Olivia felt a familiar protective anger rising. Has Alexander heard these rumors? I don't know. But if Richard is making moves, Alexander needs to be prepared. When Alexander picked her up that evening, Olivia was still thinking about Victoria's warning. He looked handsome in a dark suit, his eyes lighting up when he saw her in the emerald dress he'd bought her. "You look stunning," he said, helping her into the car. "Thank you. Where are we going?" "You'll see." He drove them to a part of the city she didn't recognize, parking in front of a beautiful brownstone. "What is this place?" Olivia asked. "Come inside." The building was gorgeous. High ceilings, original hardwood floors, huge windows letting in evening light. And it was completely empty. "Alexander, what?" "It's ours. I bought it this morning." He took her hands. "I know the estate is beautiful, but it's also my father's world. His rules. His memories. I wanted us to have something that's just ours." Olivia stared at him, stunned. "You bought us a house. A home. For us to build together however we want. No ghosts. No expectations. Just space for our future." She looked around the empty rooms, already imagining them filled with life, with love, with everything they were building together. "It's perfect," she whispered. "Really? Because if you hate it..." She kissed him, cutting off his worried rambling. "It's perfect because you chose it for us." They explored the house together, Alexander pointing out features and possibilities, Olivia seeing their future in every empty room. Library. A nursery maybe someday. Guest rooms for her family. An office where she could write. "When can we move in?" she asked. "Whenever you're ready. I know the estate has been our home, but..." "This is our home," Olivia interrupted. "The estate is where we started. This is where we continue." Alexander pulled her close. "Have I told you lately that I love you?" "Not in the last 2 hours." "Then I'm overdue." "I love you, Olivia Sterling. More than I thought possible. More than I knew how to express. You're expressing it pretty well right now." "Am I?" He smiled against her hair. "Because I'm still learning. Still figuring out how to be the husband you deserve. You're already him. Even when I work too much. Even then. Even when I try to solve your problems instead of just listening. Even then. Though we're working on that one." He laughed. "Yes, we are. You've been very patient with my control issues. And you've been patient with my stubborn independence. It's not stubbornness. It's strength." He cupped her face. "You saved me, Olivia. From my father's programming. From my own worst instincts. From a life that looked successful but felt empty." "We saved each other," she corrected. "I was drowning in responsibility and fear. You gave me a reason to breathe again." They stood in the empty house holding each other, both seeing the same thing. A future they were building together, brick by brick, choice by choice. "Alexander," Olivia said eventually. Victoria told me something today. About your father." She felt him tense. "What about him?" "That he tried to get you removed as CEO during the scandal." "Is that true?" Silence. Then, "Yes." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because it doesn't matter. He failed. I'm still CEO. The company is stronger than ever. But he's your father. He's the man who gave me life and then spent years trying to break me." Alexander's voice was flat, emotionless. His business voice. "He doesn't get to matter anymore." "Alexander." "I mean it, Olivia. I'm done letting him have power over me. Done trying to earn his approval. Done caring what he thinks." "Okay." She held him tighter. "But you know I'm here, right? If you need to talk about it. If you need to work through it. I'm here." "I know." His arms came around her, holding on. "I know." They stayed like that for a long time, the empty house echoing with the weight of everything unsaid. Finally Alexander pulled back. "Come on. I want to show you the roof." They climbed the stairs to the rooftop terrace. The city sprawled below them, lights beginning to twinkle as dusk fell. "I thought we could have dinner parties up here," Alexander said. With your family, Victoria, actual friends instead of business associates. You want to have friends. I want to have a life. Real one. With you at the center. Olivia leaned against the railing, looking out at the city. Do you know what I was thinking about this morning? What? How strange it is that the worst thing that ever happened to me, being forced into this marriage, turned into the best thing. Is it? The best thing? Yes. She turned to face him. Because it gave me you. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. Not even your freedom. Freedom to do what? Live alone. Keep teaching second grade. Watch my mother die. She shook her head. That wasn't freedom, Alexander. That was just existence. This is living. He pulled her close, his chin resting on top of her head. I don't deserve you. Probably not. But you're stuck with me anyway. Good. Because I'm not letting go. They watched the sun set over the city, both of them quiet, both of them content. Olivia, Alexander said eventually. Yes. Thank you. For what? For choosing to stay. For seeing past the contract to the man underneath. For loving me even when I made it difficult. Loving you is the easiest thing I've ever done, she replied honestly. Even when you're difficult. I'm always difficult. True. But you're my difficult. He laughed, the sound warm and free. Yours. Always yours. As the stars began to appear, they made plans for their new home. For their future. For the life they were building together. And Olivia realized something. She'd spent so long thinking of herself as trapped, as forced into this arrangement, as having no choice. But choice wasn't about the beginning. It was about every moment after. And every day she chose Alexander. Every day he chose her. And that choice, that intentional, deliberate, freely made choice, was what made their love real. Chapter 8. Forever starts now. The confrontation with Richard Sterling was inevitable. It happened on a Tuesday, 3 weeks after Alexander bought the brownstone. Richard showed up unannounced at the estate. Olivia's estate now, she'd learned, as Alexander had legally signed it over to her as a gift. She was in the library when Roberts announced him. Mrs. Sterling, Mr. Richard Sterling is here to see you. Me. Not Alexander. He specifically requested you, ma'am. Olivia closed her laptop, her stomach knotting with apprehension. Whatever Richard wanted, it wouldn't be good. She found him in the formal living room, standing by the window like he owned the place, which technically he once had. Mr. Sterling, she said coolly. This is unexpected. Is it? He turned, his gray eyes, so like Alexander's but infinitely colder, assessing her. We have things to discuss, you and I. Do we? Sit down, Olivia. This won't take long. She remained standing. I prefer to stand. Say what you came to say. Richard's lips twitched. Was that respect or annoyance? Hard to tell. Very well. I'll be direct. I want you to leave my son. Olivia's breath caught, but she kept her voice steady. Excuse me. Leave Alexander. Divorce him. Quietly, amicably, with the terms I'll provide. Your mother's treatment continues. Your father's company remains stable. You'll receive a generous settlement. Everyone wins. Except Alexander. Alexander will be fine. He'll find another suitable wife. Someone more appropriate to his position. And I'm not appropriate. You're a complication. Richard moved closer, his presence oppressive. My son was supposed to marry for business. For legitimacy. Instead he fell in love with you and now he's soft. Distracted. Making decisions based on emotion rather than logic. You mean he's becoming human? I mean he's becoming weak. Richard's voice hardened. I spent years molding Alexander into someone who could survive in this world. Someone ruthless enough to build an empire. And you're undoing all of that with your love and understanding and emotional support. Good, Olivia said firmly. Because that version of Alexander, the one you created. He was miserable, lone, incapable of actual connection. He was successful. He was broken. And I'm helping him heal. By making him vulnerable. By teaching him to care about things that don't matter. Things like love. Like happiness. Those matter, Mr. Sterling. They're the only things that actually matter. Richard laughed. That cold, mirthless sound she remembered from his first visit. You're naive. In this world, vulnerability is a weapon others use against you. Emotions are liabilities. Love is a luxury Alexander can't afford. Or maybe love is the only thing worth affording. Spoken like someone who's never had to fight for survival. I fought for my mother's life by marrying your son, Olivia shot back. Don't tell me I don't understand sacrifice. That was a transaction. This is different. Yes, it is. Because now it's real. Now we chose each other freely. And that terrifies you, doesn't it? Richard's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. What terrifies me is watching my son throw away everything I built because of some misguided notion of love. He's not throwing anything away. He's building something better. With you. The scorn in Richard's voice was palpable. A teacher who writes in journals and plays at charity work. What do you bring to my son's life besides distraction? I bring him happiness. Is a reason to be more than just his company. Those things don't matter. They matter to him. Olivia's voice rose despite her effort to stay calm. They matter to the man underneath the CEO. The man you never bothered to know because you were too busy shaping him into your image. I made him strong. You made him lonely. There's a difference. Silence fell, heavy and tense. Richard stared at her like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. How much? He asked finally. What? How much will it take for you to leave? Name your price. Everyone has one. You can't buy me. Everyone can be bought. Alexander did it. Why can't I? Because Alexander offered me a choice. You're trying to force one. A choice to save your mother. That's not free will, that's desperation. Maybe it started that way. But I chose to stay. I chose to love him. And I choose to keep choosing him every single day, no matter how much money you offer. Richard studied her for a long moment. Then surprisingly he smiled. A real smile this time, though still not warm. You actually love him, he said, like the concept was foreign. Yes. And you think love is enough? That it will protect you from this world's cruelties? No. But I think love gives us a reason to face those cruelties together. Poetic. Naive but poetic. Richard moved toward the door, then paused. A word of warning, Mrs. Sterling. Love makes people careless. It makes them vulnerable. And in this world, vulnerability gets exploited. When someone uses your love for Alexander against you, and someone will, don't say I didn't warn you. He left, leaving Olivia shaking with anger and adrenaline. When Alexander came home that evening, she was waiting in the foyer. Your father came to see me today, she said without preamble. Alexander froze. What? He offered me money to leave you. Said I was making you weak and vulnerable. I'll kill him. Alexander's voice was flat, deadly serious. I'll actually kill him. No, you won't. Because he's not worth it. She crossed to him, taking his face between her hands. But you need to know what he said. About love being a weapon. About vulnerability being dangerous. He's wrong. Is he? 'Cause he has a point, Alexander. Loving you makes me vulnerable. Gives people leverage against me. Against us. Olivia. But I don't care. She smiled. I'd rather be vulnerable and in love than safe and alone. Every time. Alexander pulled her close. His arms tight around her. I'm sorry. I'm sorry he came here. I'm sorry he tried to buy you off. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing for him. He makes his own choices. Just like we make ours. What did you tell him? That love matters more than money. That you're healing, not weakening. That I'm not going anywhere. I don't deserve you. We've established that. Multiple times. Can we move on? Despite everything, Alexander laughed. What did I do to earn someone like you? You gave me a journal. You defended me against your father. You trusted me to help you. You chose me back. He kissed her then, deep and thorough, like he was trying to communicate everything words couldn't express. When they finally broke apart, Olivia said, I need to tell you something. Should I be worried? No. Maybe. I don't know. She took a breath. I've been writing a book about us, about arranged marriages that become real. Have you? Is that weird? It's perfect. Can I read it? It's not finished yet. When it is, then. It might be too honest. Too revealing. Good. The world needs more honesty. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. What else haven't you told me? I joined Victoria's Literacy Charity Board. That's wonderful. And I've been thinking about going back to teaching. Part-time maybe. Just a few classes. You should. You don't think it's beneath Mrs. Alexander Sterling? I think Olivia Sterling should do whatever makes her happy. Whether that's teaching or writing or running a charity or all of the above. She smiled. When did you become so supportive? When I realized that your happiness is more important than society's expectations. Character growth. I like it. I learned from the best. He kissed her forehead. What else? What other secrets are you hiding? Olivia hesitated. This was the big one. The truth she'd been avoiding for 2 weeks because she wasn't sure she was ready. I'm late, she said quietly. Alexander pulled back to look at her. Late for what? My period. I'm 2 weeks late. She watched realization dawn across his face. Shock, then hope, then fear. Are you? He couldn't seem to finish the sentence. I don't know. Maybe. I haven't taken a test yet because I'm terrified. Why terrified? Because a baby wasn't supposed to happen yet. We were supposed to have more time. Time to be just us before becoming parents. And if you are pregnant, then we figure it out. Together. She placed his hand over her still flat stomach. But I need you to be honest with me. Would you be happy? Or would you see it as just fulfilling another term of our contract? Alexander's eyes met hers, clear and certain. If you're pregnant, I'd be terrified and thrilled and completely unprepared. But happy. God, yes. So happy, Olivia. 'Cause it would be our child. Created from love, not obligation. You mean that? Every word. He pulled her close. Should we find out? Together. Now. Why not? 20 minutes later, they stood in their bathroom, staring at a pregnancy test as the timer ticked down. What if it's negative? Olivia asked. Then we keep trying. If you want to. What if it's positive? Then we start figuring out how to be parents. Timer beep. They looked at the test together. 2 pink lines. Positive. Olivia felt Alexander's hand tighten in hers. When she looked up at him, his eyes were bright with unshed tears. We're going to have a baby, she whispered. We're going to have a baby, he repeated like he couldn't quite believe it. Then he was kissing her, his hands cradling her face. His joy palpable and overwhelming. I love you, he said against her lips. I love you so much. I love you too. Both of you. She placed his hand back on her stomach. All 3 of us. They sank to the bathroom floor, backs against the tub. Hands linked over her stomach where their child was growing. I have no idea how to be a father, Alexander admitted. And I have no idea how to be a mother. But we'll figure it out together. Like we've figured out everything else. Exactly like that. He pulled her against his chest, and they sat in comfortable silence, processing this new reality. Alexander, Olivia said eventually. Thank you. For what? For asking me to marry you. Even though it was a business deal. Even though we started all wrong. Thank you for giving me this life. Olivia, you gave me this life. Before you, I was just going through the motions. You made me real again. We made each other real. Yes. He kissed the top of her head. We did. Later that night, lying in bed with Olivia asleep against his chest, Alexander thought about his father's warning. About vulnerability being dangerous. About love being a weapon. Maybe Richard was right. Maybe loving Olivia made him vulnerable. Made him soft. But as he held his wife, his real wife, not just his contractual obligation, and thought about the child growing inside her, Alexander realized he didn't care. Vulnerability wasn't weakness. It was courage. Love wasn't a liability. It was the greatest asset he'd ever acquired. And if that made him soft in his father's eyes, so be it. Because he'd rather be soft and happy than hard and alone. He'd rather be human than successful. He'd rather be Olivia's husband than the world's most ruthless businessman. I love you, he whispered to his sleeping wife. Thank you for teaching me how. She stirred slightly, murmuring something that sounded like his name. Her hand moving unconsciously to her stomach. Protecting their child even in sleep. Alexander closed his eyes, finally, perfectly at peace. This was what mattered. Not empires or board meetings or his father's approval. Love. Family. Everything else was just noise. Epilogue. Someone real. The nursery was painted a soft gray-green, with white furniture and colorful books already lining shelves their daughter wouldn't reach for years. Olivia stood in the doorway, 8 months pregnant, watching Alexander attempt to assemble a crib. It says tab A goes into slot B, she offered helpfully. That's what I'm doing. You're trying to force tab C into slot B. Alexander looked at the instructions, then at the crib, then at his wife. I'm a CEO. I run a multimillion-dollar company. How am I defeated by Swedish furniture? Because Swedish furniture doesn't respond to intimidation. Clearly, I need to refine my approach. He set down the Allen wrench and crossed to her, his hands settling on her belly. How are my girls? Your daughter is using my bladder as a trampoline. And your wife needs to sit down. He guided her to the rocking chair they'd placed by the window. The view looked out over their new home's small garden. Nothing like the sprawling estate, but theirs. They'd moved in 3 months ago, and Olivia had never been happier. This house felt alive in a way the estate never had. Filled with laughter and love and the chaotic process of building a life together. Read to me, Alexander asked, settling at her feet. It had become their ritual. Every evening, Olivia read aloud from the book she'd been writing. Their story, fictionalized but essentially true. 2 people forced together by circumstance who found something neither expected. She opened her laptop and began reading the final chapter. When she finished, Alexander was quiet for a long moment. Is that really how you see it? He asked finally. Us. Which part? The part where you say falling in love with me was the easiest thing you'd ever done. That's not fiction. That's truth. Even though I bought you. Even though. Because somewhere between the contract and now, you became the man I'd choose freely. Every time. In every lifetime. Alexander stood, pulling her up carefully, his hands framing her face. You know what the incredible thing is? What? I was so focused on buying legitimacy that I didn't realize I was also buying a lottery ticket. And somehow, impossibly, I won. I'm the prize. You're everything. He kissed her gently, mindful of her pregnant belly between them. I finished the book, Olivia said when they broke apart. You did. Last chapter. Just now. I read you the ending. What happens next? I submit it to publishers. See if anyone wants to read a story about arranged marriage turning into real love. They will. It's a great story. It's our story. Even better. They stood together in the nursery they'd built, surrounded by proof of the life they'd created. Not just the baby coming soon, but everything. The home. The love. Partnership. Do you ever regret it? Olivia asked. The contract, the arrangement, everything we've been through? Never. Not once. Alexander's hand covered hers on her belly. You. Never. Though I do wish I'd known sooner what you'd become to me. What am I to you? Everything I didn't know I needed. Everything I was afraid to want. Everything real in a world that often feels fake. Someone real, Alexander echoed, remembering the words he'd said that first night. Finally, someone real. We're both real now. Yes, we are. Olivia's phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. How's domestic life treating you too? She typed back. Perfectly imperfectly. That's the best kind of perfect. Lunch next week. Absolutely. Victoria. Alexander guessed. She wants to have lunch. Probably to interrogate me about whether married life is everything I imagined. Is it? Olivia thought about the question. Their first dance at the wedding where she'd felt like a prisoner. The nights she'd cried alone, mourning her freedom. The gradual shift as Alexander became less captor and more partner. The moment she'd realized she loved him. The choice to stay not because she had to, but because she wanted to. It's better, she said finally. Because I couldn't have imagined this. Real. Together. Happy. No nightmares lately. No nightmares. Though I do dream about labor and delivery. Those are pretty terrifying. He laughed. We'll get through it. Together. Together, she agreed. Like everything else. They moved to the window, looking out at the garden where spring flowers were beginning to bloom. A year ago, Olivia had been drowning. Now she was building, creating, living. Hey, Alexander said softly. Thank you. For what? For taking a chance on us. For seeing past the contract to the possibility. For teaching me how to be human again. You taught me some things too. Like how strength sometimes looks like vulnerability. Like how the best things in life are often the ones that terrify us most. Like how love isn't something you fall into. It's something you choose every day, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard, he agreed. Olivia leaned back against him. His arms coming around her and their daughter. Do you think she'll understand someday? How we started? I hope so. I hope we can tell her that sometimes the best love stories don't begin with love. They begin with courage. And desperation. And hope that something real might grow from artificial beginnings. And it did, Olivia said. Against all odds it did. They stood in the nursery as evening fell. Two people who'd been forced together by necessity and chose to stay together through love. The crib remained half-assembled. The laundry needed folding. There were 1,000 things to do before their daughter arrived. But none of it mattered as much as this moment. This connection. This choice to be here, together, building something that started as a business arrangement and became a love story. Olivia, Alexander said. Yes. I'm really glad you slapped me that night at the coffee shop. She laughed. That was in the novel. I didn't actually slap you. I know. But you should have. I deserved it. You did. You were arrogant and presumptuous and completely unprepared for you to turn my world upside down. Did I? Completely. He turned her to face him. You made me want to be better. You made me want to be real. You made me want to be worthy of the love you gave me. Are you? I hope so. I'm trying. You're succeeding. She kissed him softly. Every day you're succeeding. Later, after they'd given up on the crib and ordered takeout and settled on the couch with Olivia's feet in Alexander's lap while he rubbed them, she said, I have something for you. What? He pulled out a folder. The first 3 chapters of the book. For you to read. But not just to read. I need your permission. Permission for what? To publish it. Or story. Fictionalized but recognizable. I won't do it if you're not comfortable. Alexander took the folder, flipping through the pages. She watched his expression change as he read. Surprise, recognition, emotion. Finally he looked up. You made me better than I am. No. I made you honest. You made me the hero. You are the hero. The man who learned to be vulnerable. The man who chose love over everything else. Is that how you see me? That's who you are. He closed the folder carefully. Publish it. Tell our story. Let people know that sometimes love comes from the most unlikely places. You're sure? I'm sure. He pulled her close. I'm proud of how we started and prouder of where we are. Let the world know. Olivia kissed him, tasting salt. When she pulled back, his eyes were bright. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For being you. For choosing me. For building this life with me. Best decision I ever made. Even if it started as a business deal. Especially because it started as a business deal. Means everything we've built was intentional. They sat together as night fell, the city lights coming on outside their window, their daughter moving restlessly inside Olivia. A year ago, Olivia had signed a contract that felt like a prison sentence. Tonight, she sat in a home they'd chosen, with a husband she loved, carrying a child they'd created. Not from obligation, from choice, from love. The arranged marriage had become real. The transaction had become a partnership. The contract had become a love story. And Olivia Morrison Sterling, formerly teacher, reluctant bride, and accidental romance novelist, had never been happier. Hey, Alexander said softly. What are you thinking? That I'm glad we got our timing wrong. Wrong. We fell in love backward. Got married first, loved each other later. Did everything out of order. And it's perfect. 'Cause it means we chose this. Chose us. Not because we were swept up in romance, but because we decided deliberately to build something real. Someone real, Alexander echoed again. Yes. She kissed him. Someone real. Finally. Outside, the city sparkled with possibility. Inside, two people who'd been forced together by circumstance held each other close. Their daughter kicked, as if agreeing with the sentiment. And in that moment, everything that had seemed wrong, the contract, the arrangement, the impossible beginning, revealed itself to be exactly perfectly right. Because sometimes the best love stories don't start with love at all. They start with courage. With sacrifice. With two people desperate enough to make a deal. And brave enough to turn that deal into something real. Then,